You know what I love?
Sports.
I love sports.
Sports. When
It comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
I need to talk a little sports with you, Ags. David Nuño here with TexAgs Radio.
Welcome back to TexAgs Stacked. I'm Billy Lucci.
Olin Buchanan.
Make a mistake. We're not going anywhere. This is going to be a great program, and we're building it into a great program.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
Do you realize everybody knows who you are right now?
I stand by what we do and how we do it.
Schools are like, we're freaking Texas A&M, man. Like,
That's about as pretty a throw-catch combo as there is.
I saw the safety roll, the slot fade. I knew where I needed to put the ball.
You had no other option but one hand at that point.
Yeah, man, 50-50 ball, I got to come down with it.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
Doesn't matter to me. Does not matter. Just win freaking football games. Welcome into TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, here in the Rollo Insurance Studio for the Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Maroon never looked so good at Maroon U. It is Wednesday, September the 6th, 2023. I've got Olin Buchanan with me here. Olin, you got a thought on your mind?
Well, I was just something about the intro just piqued my curiosity.
It ruffles feathers, so be careful where you go here.
Now, here's what it's a radio thing. So we're assuming most people are hearing it and not seeing it.
I don't necessarily agree with that.
Well, okay. All right.
I mean, we have a huge our YouTube page, buddy.
Yeah. Up to what?
Pretty big. 10,500.
People are driving around.
There's the CW8.
Okay.
Huge. I mean, that is big. And the Zone is big. So, and people listen on podcasts. I wouldn't assume it's just.
I didn't say just.
I wouldn't say it's a majority radio.
Really? You don't
I mean, it might be. I mean, Louis probably saying, yes, it is.
I would think it is.
I'm just saying there's many ways to consume the show,
Yes.
so I don't know the exact science.
But if you're only listening and there you are and you say, you realize everybody knows who you are now. And I'm thinking people hear you say that.
They're talking about you.
No.
Oh.
And people think, well, who's he talking to? Everybody knows who you are now. Who is it? And it's a thing, Mo.
Yeah.
Mo.
Well, you know what? Watch the show every once in a while, then you'll know.
But now you know. If you were driving around and you just heard it, because it just hit me.
Yeah.
And you hear David say, everybody knows who you are. And you're like, who is it?
Actually, no, I don't know who it is.
Who is it?
Who is it?
Well, it's a thing, Mo.
So we should get her back in studio to say what I had you say yesterday. Hi, I'm a thing Moo. Or a thing Mo, excuse me. Yeah.
Did I say that yesterday?
You said it on camera, yeah.
Did I?
Yeah.
I can't even remember.
Can you do it again just this time? Like, look at that camera right there and just, distinguished look.
Hi, I'm a thing Moo.
No.
You mean me?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Olin Buchanan.
Thank you very much.
Actually, that's kind of the way I sound when I approached Irma. I said, hi, I'm Olin Buchanan.
How can you do Bond? Can you do 007?
I'm Bond. Jaime Bond. That's the Latin version.
The Latin version. Thank you. I didn't know that. Yeah.
I did that.
Latin American version. So, yeah, the AP poll came out. Aggie's still at 23. I don't care.
Don't care.
No me importa nada.
See.
It doesn't bother. I will care when LSU comes around. I will care.
Of course.
Right. When Bama comes around. Maybe not as much, but you win games, you move up the charts. Look at Duke. Duke won a big game. They weren't ranked. Now they're 21st. Colorado wins a pretty big game for them.
Yeah.
They move up to the ranked. Now, are people jumping on it based on one day? Look, TCU lost a lot of players. I wasn't sold on them before the season started, but whatevs. It doesn't matter. You win the games that you're supposed to, then you will move up the rankings because other teams are going to lose.
It's funny. At the end of the year, the teams that are 12-0 are at the top. 11-1, they're near the top. 10-0, or 10-2, they're that's the way it works.
You're not in
People
Conference
get
USA.
So worked up about things that are so unnecessarily to be upset about.
Would I like to see them move up? I guess. I don't know. Whatever. Just win games.
I have no issue with it.
By the way, I don't think if you beat Miami, it'll move the needle a little bit.
It will.
But it won't move the needle
Well, it depends on what everybody else does.
Right.
So if you beat Miami, especially if you look good doing it. Maybe you creep into the top 20. You know, maybe you get up to 19, depending on what else happens around you.
And by the way, if Miami beats A&M, they might move into the top 25, right?
So and then A&M will fall out of the top 25.
Yeah, so just win the games you're supposed to.
Just win.
That's all I ask. And I think they will. We got a couple things I want to do this segment, but can we be silly for a moment?
It's been known to happen.
OB, we are going to do our show on Friday from our hotel in Miami. Okay? Yeah, I can't wait to go, buddy. It's going to be great. I'm going to be insufferable. That being said, I had our awesome intern staff, a couple of them, send our banners in the mail to the hotel.
So you put it behind you.
Yeah, so it looks professional, right? Like,
yeah.
So it doesn't look like we're in that seedy hotel room that we had in New York, right? Where you would sit on the bed and we're doing the show and your legs are open, everyone's looking right at us, right? Like it was just, that's not what I want for this particular trip. But if it happens, it happens, right? Okay. So we're going to try to make it look professional. So I tell I'm not going to even say which two, but one has a mustache, one has glasses. That's all I'm going to say. You can figure it out. Okay?
Yeah. Okay.
And
Luke has a mustache.
Oh, I wasn't necessarily talking about that.
No, I'm going through the interns that have mustaches.
Okay. Well, I mean, but I'm sure there's another one.
No, they're sure like Kennedy Cavan.
She does not.
No.
Okay. But anyway, I say, hey, can you get these banners to this hotel? And we have been talking about it for a couple of days because we wanted to time it correctly so it gets there right around when we get there. You know the whole thing, right? Yeah. So yesterday they do that. Kevin, I got a question for you. Have you ever sent a letter in the mail?
When I had a pen pal, yeah.
I knew she had a pen pal. I said it before the show. I knew it.
Was like a prison? Someone in prison?
No.
Oh.
So it was like.
Wasn't a penitentiary.
It was like in like middle school or intermediate school.
I think they make us do that. So, would you know to put a return address?
Sorry, Nick, I'm having to move the microphone. Yeah.
Would you know to put the name? Right.
That's what you do with mail.
Yeah. Would you put the name of the person you're sending it to?
Addressing it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So a couple of our interns sent our banners to a hotel.
Yeah.
Without a return address. Okay. Which maybe it's not that end of a deal. All right. It's not that end of a big deal. Whatever. But the hotel told me on the phone, we don't necessarily accept packages of our patrons. You have to have it approved. So I'm thinking to myself, if they don't approve it, where's that package going to go? Well, I got it approved. Okay. But then I asked them, I go, hey, did you put my name on it? Nope.
So they know who's going to pick it up.
Yeah. It's just a box going to the hotel. Just no David Nuño, no TexAgs, no Olin Buchanan.
I would think that's full of fentanyl or something like that. A box with no return address, no name on it.
Would you send an email without the email address? That's just the way I think of it. And you brought up to me, you're like, hey, these guys don't send mail. All they know is electronic. And I think you're right. This generation, remember we were asking them about writing a check? They're like, I think I can figure it out. Yeah, this will be fine. It'll be easy. You just put the number and send, right? But this generation has not been taught how to send mail.
Yeah.
We have failed people.
It's more of an indictment on the
society.
On society than it is the two interns.
No. At first I was like, are you really
Except
kidding
for
me?
that Kennedy Cavan knows what to do, so why don't they?
Well, I told you she probably had a pen pal.
Women are more likely to send letters, I think.
And smarter.
I think. Yeah, some women are smarter.
Cavs?
I zipped my mouth and threw the key away.
Okay. That's really good for radio.
Yep.
Anyway, by the way, Kennedy Cavan is at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. The Angry Elephant, like your politics, love your bar. Find an Angry Elephant near you in Bryan, College Station, Magnolia, San Antonio. Located, all those great places. Find an Angry Elephant near you. All right, OB. Here in this opening segment, I kind of want to get into games that we want to watch. All right, let's go around college football. And you wrote your column yesterday, so I want to kind of go into it. And I think we're going to start off with number 22 Colorado taking on Nebraska. An old school rivalry.
It is. That used to be a real nasty rivalry back in the day. So it's anytime you see two old rivals get together, that's interesting. But gosh, I think people just now want to see if there's more of that Colorado track meet offense going. You know, can Nebraska slow it down at all? Can Nebraska hope to score with Colorado? Because Nebraska couldn't score against Minnesota last week, but TCU also ran up and down the field on Colorado. So maybe that helps answer some questions that may be lingering about just how good this Colorado team is, how bad Nebraska is. You know, I don't know that even if a Colorado win, if that says, okay, Colorado's for real, because I don't know how good Nebraska is. But, you know, you start stacking wins, you gotta wonder just what Deion Sanders has already done.
Well, some people were thinking to themselves before the season started, I don't even know if Deion's going to be bowl eligible. And you get 2 early wins like that, I think you can start feeling pretty good about the direction of at least this year, at least the direction.
Like I said, I always approached Colorado as a curiosity, and you know, based on what we saw last week, you know, you think that there's very little doubt they can move the football. Of course, a lot of teams moved the football on TCU last year, and they're probably not as good. But are they going to be able to play strong enough defense to consistently win? I think that's a valid question after the first week.
Absolutely. So let's get into the next one, OB, as my screen is frozen. We'll skip this one because this is our game. We'll go to the next one. Number 10, Notre Dame at NC State.
Yeah, you know, Notre Dame, people always want to watch Notre Dame, and they've gotten off to a fast start. But it was against Navy and Tennessee State. So what is Notre Dame right now? Not sure. And I'm not sure that NC State is in the same class, but they're a lot closer. And they're playing that game in Raleigh, where NC State's won something like, I think it's 16 of the last 17 games at home. So it's going to be more of a challenge for Notre Dame. So I think we get a better idea what Notre Dame is this week.
In the next segment, by the way, I'm going to kind of go through some teams that have the most to lose this weekend. And I think Notre Dame might be one of those teams because a loss to NC State could be, I don't want to say catastrophic, but it could be a sign of things to come. So we'll move on to the next one, which I'm very intrigued by this game. Number 20, Ole Miss at number 24, Tulane.
Ole Miss and Tulane. Who would have?
Willie Fritz, baby.
Who would have thought that would have been one of like 2 matchups of ranked opponents? But yeah, I'm Willie Fritz. That guy wins everywhere he goes. What's he doing still at Tulane? You know, you would think after last year somebody would have hired him to win. Last time we saw Tulane, I guess, against a Power 5 opponent, that was maybe I don't even know who they played last week, so it could have been. But they were beating USC in the bowl game.
Yep.
So now here Ole Miss. And Ole Miss scores 73 points last week against Mercer. So there's no mercy for Mercer. But
big game. I think a bigger game for Ole Miss than Tulane because we know that their struggles the last couple of years, at least last year, not a couple of years, last year in SEC play.
Teams.
Yeah, and Tulane's a good team.
Yeah. So that's I find that would be one of if not for A&M and Miami, take that out. But that would be one of 2 games I'd absolutely want to see this weekend.
All right. And then number 11, Texas at number 3, Alabama.
Hey, that game came down to a field goal with 10 seconds left last year.
Bryce Young heroics.
Yeah, and a really questionable call that went against Texas. If you want to look at it objectively, was it a safety? Should have been, I thought, but no. You know, this one could come down to the wire, too. I think Texas has an advantage with their receivers against Alabama's DBs, and there's uncertainty whether of 2 of Alabama's starting DBs are going to be able to play.
Yeah.
So if they're out, that even
complicates
widens
things more.
That advantage for Texas. So that could be a really good game.
And then the game that we all are going to be watching, number 23, Texas A&M at the University of Miami. This is one that at some point this week I want to kind of go through with you and with Billy. This is not the same. These teams are different than the 2 teams that played last year at Kyle Field. There's different offensive coordinators involved. They have a different defensive coordinator as well. Tyler Van Dyke is still the quarterback, but maybe in this new offense we'll be able to move the ball a little bit more. A&M obviously has a brand new offense that was unveiled this past week, and it looked great. So very intrigued by this matchup for many reasons.
Yeah, you know, remember last year's game that A&M won, it wasn't settled until a 4th down incompletion by Miami in the last 30 seconds. So I think this is a game that means a lot to Miami, obviously, SEC opponent. We talked about that yesterday. They are better. They got an offensive lineman transferred in from Alabama. They got another one transferred in from South Florida or Central Florida to try to boost that offensive line. Evan Stewart did not play last year against Miami.
Neither did Connor.
And neither did Connor. And I don't even know if Noah Thomas
didn't either.
Yeah. So to your point, it's a lot different than it was last year. I come away with if A&M could beat them last year with that offense, I feel pretty good about them even on the road this year.
If you want to be a part of the conversation, you can do that multiple ways. We see a bunch of text messages coming in, some about mail. Oh, interesting. You can do that at 979-693-1150. We go behind the glass and say hi to Nick Savage.
Howdy, good morning, y'all.
Good morning, buddy.
I do know how to send mail, so don't ask. We talked about that. Yeah, thank you.
Look at the dude next to you. He's wearing glasses.
He got, maybe, I don't know.
That's not him, is it?
No, I don't think so. He looks like he knows how to send mail.
Does he?
Yeah.
Does he?
Yeah.
I guarantee you he knows now.
You got to learn somehow, right, OB?
It's true.
Hey, but
so we didn't lose it. That's all I hope.
Yeah, let's hope so. But hey, I don't know how much y'all saw on Twitter yesterday, but there's a viral tweet from a Miami fan going around saying, hey, we heard, it was nice. It was nice at Kyle Field. Everyone was super nice, but that won't be reciprocated at Hard Rock Stadium. So I just want to get y'all's thoughts on that.
I mean, if you're proud of being classless, be you.
I covered a game between Miami and Florida State in 2006. I think it was the season opener. And I saw I saw this with my own eyes, so it's not secondhand. I saw a group of Florida State fans were walking down the street, and I'm not saying Florida State fans are, any angels by any means, but there was a school bus with a bunch of Miami frat guys on it, and they threw a bottle, and I believe it might have been filled with urine.
Oh.
And it hit and broke right in front of them. I mean, almost hit the people. And they weren't even students, they're like our age, or your age, I should say.
Right.
So that gave me the my first impression of Miami fans right there,
Well, the Miami fans that I ran into last year at Kyle Field were very nice.
Well, yeah, because they're probably a little more well-heeled than the
right.
They made the trip.
And I don't know, we had an insider on, Alex Dono, on yesterday from Locked On Canes, and he thinks it's going to be about 60,000 people at this game.
Okay, yeah, that sounds about right.
But I'm just curious, what kind of crowd that'll be. Is it going to be your more toned down crowd, or is it your typical Miami? Let's go. Let's be rough and tough.
Oh, I think it'll be rough and tough in the first half.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just one of the things I remember about that Miami game, that one I covered, was how many people, male and female, attended the game in their swimsuits.
Gosh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
OB in a Speedo in Miami. That's happening. It's happening, buddy. And it's going to live on Instagram forever.
I prefer more of a thong look, but okay.
I wear it backwards. All right. Well, you got to think I'm playing. I haven't made him laugh like that in a while. All right. Sorry for the graphic. But it is what it is. All right. We'll come back with Kevin in a second. But let's talk a little Fargo's. How do we segue? We can't. There's no segue from that.
No,
We're
really
just going to talk
not.
about good food. All right? Just tell me something good about the food at Fargo's.
Well,
first.
today's Wednesday.
Yeah.
So today you can get chopped beef on a baked potato. So, Bobby Petrino wants to feed the studs, and Fargo's would feed the studs some spuds with some beef.
And tomorrow, when we're traveling, I don't think we'll have time to stop at Fargo's.
Unfortunately.
But if we did.
We could go get a big old juicy pork chop with some macaroni and cheese, both of them.
And green beans. Don't forget your veggies.
I never forget the green beans.
And red potatoes. That's their special. But they got other stuff.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you get the brisket, barbecue, the sausage, all the things, all the traditional things that you like with barbecue, you can get at Fargo.
They've been around for 22 years. Football weekends, office parties, weddings, anniversaries, funerals, and dinners. Good food done the right way. 1701 South Texas Avenue in Bryan, without a doubt, the what?
It's the best barbecue in Texas, which makes it the best barbecue in the world.
That's their trademark.
Because it's true.
Well, they tell the truth, don't they?
No, they always tell the truth. Belinda and Alan wouldn't lie.
What about Maurice? I don't
know about Maurice, but he doesn't have to lie. He's a big old dude.
When you guys go next on the Fargos, let me know if Maurice is telling the truth. Do a lie detector. All right, it's Fargos. Go check them out. And we are back. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Got some text messages that are, just some are funny, but
people being salty today.
Yeah,
think about Miami and all that salt there, that salt life. So they're being salty.
Well, somebody didn't like the intro. Like Billy signed off on that intro. Like, yeah, it's good. Pretty good.
I kind of like the intro.
Kind of like it too.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just saying that. I was thinking that if you're driving and you heard, "Hey, everybody knows you now," you're like, "Well, who is it?"
Well, that's where you have to watch. By the way, have you subscribed to our YouTube page yet? If you haven't, please do. Let's. By the way, it's the Go Hour presented by the Warehouse at
CC Creations.
CC Creations.
CC Creations.
Let's go to the Angry Elephant News.
CC Senior.
In Social Center. Miss Cavan, do you have your YouTube page open?
I do.
You see that message from Chris Record?
Yes, I do.
Can you read it out loud, please?
I sure can.
Please go.
David, when you are going through your progression on who you want to win the UT Alabama game, where does your wife's matriculation at UT rate?
I don't consider my wife a Longhorn. I consider her an Aggie because she doesn't watch Longhorn sports. She doesn't really talk. I mean, she's proud of her university, sure. She roots for Aggie sports. She knows who pays the bills. Her kids are Aggies, even though they're young. And her husband is a diehard Aggie. So we are an Aggie household. And if she maybe doesn't profess it, she doesn't have a former student sticker on her car, she might get one, right? Like she. So I want Texas to lose every time they play in any sport. That's it. That's the bottom line. And unless it's going to help A&M in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
Bama, I like when they lose too. But Bama is who Bama is. And it will be sweeter to beat an undefeated Bama if A&M is given the opportunity to do so. So that's how it comes down for me.
Okay, that's interesting, because, again, like they point out, you have family that's went to school there.
The only way I would root for Texas would be if my children played in a sport for that university and it wasn't football.
Okay.
Right? Like, I know that sounds weird, but
like if they're running cross country, you say, "Hey, let's go Longhorns cross country."
I don't think I can say that.
Okay.
I would just root for my sons.
Oh, okay.
I don't think I'm physically I couldn't. It goes against everything.
Yeah, I think the rules change if your kid was actually competing for them.
Yeah, of course. You root for your kid, right? I remember Arch Manning was asked who he was rooting for, the Saints or the Colts in the Super Bowl. And he's like, I'm rooting for my son. What are you talking about? Like, why ask? Of course I'm rooting. I'm not rooting for the Saints. I'm rooting for my son.
Yeah.
That's how it should be.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
But when it comes to football, I think it's different. Like, at least the Longhorns and A&M. Like, score a touchdown, son. Gig 'em.
I grew up a Texas fan. I think you knew that.
That was a mistake.
And then I always say I grew up a Texas fan, and then I grew up. I stole that line from somebody on the board. I liked it, but it's true. Actually, what happened was Texas fans made me. When I got to TexAgs, I started really seeing how they act on social media and things like that. I said, I just don't like Texas fans. So it made me root against Texas. And Alabama fans make me root against Alabama. I respect the programs.
Right.
And they're trying to win, which is what you're supposed to do. But they're fans. So either way, I'm going to have some enjoyment knowing that one fan base is completely broken. And I think it's going to be Texas.
Yeah, but if Texas wins that game,
they
are probably a college football playoff team.
Probably.
And if they lose, they could still get in, right? Because it goes back to that question, who has the most to lose this weekend? Bama has a lot to lose this weekend. A lot. I don't think Texas has that much to lose unless it's a complete disaster. Most people, I think, are picking Bama, right? Like, I think that's right? So I say that. I think if Bama were to lose, it could derail big time their aspirations. If Texas loses, if they take care of business in the Big 12, they'll be potentially one of those 4 teams.
Oh, you say that about Alabama. They lose if they take care of their business in the SEC. But we learned last year you can't lose twice and get in the playoff. And if Alabama still has that loss, and then they have to navigate through the SEC, which maybe LSU isn't going to be as difficult as it was as we thought, but still you have to navigate your way through the SEC and then theoretically beat Georgia in a SEC championship game. I do think Alabama would be more likely to lose another game, as crazy as this may sound, than Texas is after that weekend, because Texas has, I think, an easier row in the Big 12, right?
Right. No, and Texas, if they were to beat Bama, they could probably still lose a game in the Big 12 and be fine.
Yeah, probably.
And Bama, if they lose to Texas, does not mean the end of the world, but considering who they still have left on their schedule in an SEC world, plus they would probably, if they ran the table, meet Georgia.
Plus have Georgia looming.
Right. And there we go. So
now, if Alabama lost to Texas, but ran the table through the SEC and then beat Georgia, then absolutely Alabama deserves to be in the playoff.
Absolutely. All right, let's hit a break. When we come back here on TexAgs Radio, we are going to I'm going to read a little quote that I found.
Okay.
I think you're going to like this quote, OB.
All right.
It is one about our defense from a guy that I think typically doesn't speak not bad about A&M, but I don't think he's always high on A&M, as I'm trying to waste time looking for the spot that I have coming up. But regardless, we're going to get into it here on TexAgs. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Thank you for buying me another 10 seconds. Caldwell Country Chevrolet, time Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. It's about the deals, about the experience, and about the website. It's not about the website, but if you go to the website, that's where you're going to see incredible deals out there. No doubt about that. They put the vehicles that they have on the lot on there. You get to kind of look and see, is this what I want? I think I want this one. I like the look of it. It's the right price. Then you go to the lot there in Caldwell, and you're going to be blown away by the customer service, the price point, the trade-in value that you get on your vehicle, the good old coffee and water that they have there. That's one of the perks. But there's many other perks too. Complimentary pickup for service customers. The entire experience is phenomenal. We did it back last summer and got ourselves a great little Tahoe, and it's big, and it's been wonderful for our family and our family needs. They helped us find the right vehicle. They searched all over the place until they had the right car for us at the right price, at the right color, and all the interior, all the bells and whistles that we were looking for. It is Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Not a far drive. We're talking 15 minutes, Brian and Caldwell, short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with the good people there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. Welcome back to TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Rollo Insurance Studio, Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Olin, you have a buddy, Matt Hayes.
Yeah.
Saturday down south. You guys worked together before?
We never worked. We were never employed together. No, at the same place. No.
I think he's been critical. And by the way, there's been reason to be critical, so I'm not. But you get used to certain people writing a certain way about A&M, right? Like it becomes, and some of it is warranted.
He's not like Baron Sally.
No.
Baron Sally.
The Baron, it feels that he's got an axe to grind.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, I don't know this dude. He might be salt of the earth. I don't know him. Just we base our opinions on what we see on TV.
You mean Matt?
Both. I don't know either guy. Okay. Matt seems like a friendly enough dude, but he actually spoke very highly about A&M. It says in his most recent column there, he's got a little part where he kind of breaks down each team, little tidbits on it. Texas A&M. McKinley Jackson and Walter Nolan are the best interior defensive lineman tandem in the nation. Which, by the way, I love the way that sounds. That's a great line. In fact, that's yes.
I wonder if Shamar Turner's saying, "Hey, dude,
I'm right here too." Well, because Shamar can go anywhere.
Shamar, yeah, he can.
And then he follows it up with, "No one is consistently running on the Aggies."
I hope he's right.
By no one, they've had one game.
Right.
And if we were going back to last year, they were consistently run on, but they were better when McKinley was back.
Yes, and plus guys growing up.
Yeah.
Hope he's right.
Because Miami can run the ball. We think.
We're
about to find out.
what's the guy's name? Henry Parrish. He started at Ole Miss. I remember he had like 65 yards on 9 carries against A&M while at Ole Miss about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He's not bad.
No, not bad at all.
Got some scat backs out there.
Yeah. So, look.
I watched the Ole Miss game. The Miami game last night against Miami of Ohio.
What was your takeaway?
That they have some good offensive linemen.
I heard their offensive is 3/5 of it are brand new. I heard their line's
and they got
good.
a freshman right tackle that came. He's like the number 1 rated right tackle in the country prospect. But he played like a freshman. You know, he's going to do some good things. He's going to have some bad plays. I came away thinking, okay, it's a good offensive line. I did not come away thinking, oh my God, there's a bunch. It's not like Michigan,
right?
But and then I thought, quite frankly, I thought there's plays to be had against their secondary.
Well, their secondary is the question, right? And A&M's wide receivers are pretty darn good, right?
Yeah, I think A&M's going to have an advantage in almost every game with their.
But what about their defensive front?
It looked pretty good. They got some pressure, but again, it was Miami, Ohio, and those guys were quite a bit smaller than the Miami guys. So I wasn't quite sure what to make of that.
Our insider yesterday was telling me, our insider Alex Dano, he was saying that a lot of what Tyler was doing was short passes, and he wasn't sure if it's because of his hand that he hurt his hand, right? And he wasn't sure if it was that or if that's what they were giving him.
I kind of take away from that Miami, just like A&M, doesn't want to show too much in the first game.
Yeah.
Look, we know we're going to beat these guys. Of course, it was 13-3 late.
With like a minute left, a couple
with
minutes
less
left.
than a minute. And it had the Miami of Ohio coach just had more better clock awareness. It would have been, they wouldn't have got that last field goal to make it 16-3 at halftime. But I think a lot of coaches struggle with clock awareness these days. So, I mean, they were clearly the better team, but it's not like they were just boat racing Miami, Ohio.
Can I read this text message?
Yeah.
David, if you're a diehard Aggie, why don't you ever wear an Aggie shirt? I've
seen you in Aggie shirts.
I don't know. You have worn 2 or 3 times at the very most, maybe less. Who in the freaking world actually has a database in keeping track of people's clothing and how that determines the love of your university? Sir, I'm sure you're a diehard fan. I hope you never listen again.
Oh, no, that's not true.
I'm just kidding.
That's not.
You can listen tomorrow.
Here's what I think. I wonder if people out there sit around and think about like before McGee comes on.
I can actually answer this question for him. To be very honest with you.
Okay, answer his question.
I'm sorry for cutting you off, but I can make it real easy.
Yeah.
Most of the shirts I wear are free.
Well, there's that.
That's the truth.
Anywhere got ones that are made by Aggies, the Charge apparel.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
I don't spend any money, so very rarely they're like, I need a new shirt. Like I don't have new suits.
Yeah, TexAgs giving you some nice shirts that they didn't give me.
I had to request that in the very beginning,
Well.
and I feel like when you wear a TexAgs shirt, that's like wearing an A&M shirt. Am I not right?
Yeah, I think so. But I was going to say, I wonder. Look, before McGee comes on Thursdays, a lot of times I try to think, okay, what can I say that's going to make McGee start laughing? Because I think it's really funny when McGee loses composure. And I wonder if there's not some Aggies out there conspiring and say, okay, what can we do? What can we come up with to make David mad?
It's so easy.
I wonder if that wasn't
so
calculated.
Easy. I wonder if he has that same database for Billy. How many times Billy's worn an A&M shirt, or how many times Gabe wore an A&M shirt, or how many times Kevin has worn an A&M shirt.
Well, Gabe's like you. He never bought anything in his life.
Yeah, and we're cheap. It's fine.
Yeah,
and I'm proud to be cheap. I had to buy shoes for kids. I feel like every day. Every day they need a new shoe. Hey, Dad, my running shoes don't work anymore. Oh, Dad, I have to buy spikes. Oh, Dad, my soccer shoes are out. Hey, Dad, I grew out of this. Are you kidding? We just spent $500 last weekend on on shoes. We can't keep doing it. So I don't buy anything from me.
Right. That's what most 90% of the dads listening who heard that just said, yes, I can relate.
We all
we as dads, we sacrifice to give everything to our children and our wives.
My I hate saying it out loud, but I have a celebration of years.
Yeah,
a
birthday coming.
And my wife asked me yesterday, what do I want? I go, I just want to save money. I'm fine. like, write me a check to go to our account and keep it there, right? Like, that's what I want. Like, just let's keep it right there because, like, I'm thinking college in a couple years. I'm thinking, like, where's the money tree? I gotta plant the money tree.
Yeah. My money tree is planted in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, because that's where it all goes.
Right. I did pay for this shirt. We went to the school.
Yeah, you got to support the school.
You got to support the school. My good friends at Consol out there. Anyway, we were talking about Miami before we got derailed there. After watching the game, were you more impressed by them? Because I know initially you're like, because you said a line here a moment ago, which you still said it, was that they were only up 13-3 right before the half. Then they went up 16-3. Then they went on their run. Is that the way the game was played? Was it just first game? Because a lot of teams.
Well,
had
again,
issues.
I think we talked about A&M being vanilla last week, and I think Miami was too. But I just came away thinking, okay, I'm not overly impressed. It's not like you went out and pushed around Miami of Ohio. Now, were they in control? Absolutely. Van Dyke, when he threw deep once, he got it intercepted. One time he had a guy open and he missed him, but there might have been some contact that if the official wanted to, he could have called a penalty. I'm talking about this in the first half. But because a team like Miami's always going to wear down a team like Miami of Ohio, or usually, not always, Appalachian State, but usually a lesser talented team can play on emotion and everything for a half. But I just came away thinking, okay, especially in that first half, were they clearly better than Miami of Ohio? Of course they were, but they weren't able to exploit that. But again, were they just playing it so close to the vest because they say, hey, we'll bring out the bells and whistles for A&M. We don't need to show it.
Right. Well, and again,
their first touchdown was just a quick bubble screen to their big 6'5" receiver, whose name I can't recall right off the top of my head. And he broke one tackle and outran everybody. Nice play, but he outran everybody because Miami of Ohio has clearly a higher caliber of athlete than Miami of Florida than Miami of Ohio.
Right.
So, yeah, he outran everybody, but are they going to be able to do that against A&M?
So, a couple things, by the way. I have asked several, in fact, I think everybody I've talked to offensively on Stacked. I've done a bunch of Stacked interviews this week, and I've asked them about this offense. I go, this is vanilla. Like, are there different levels to this? And I know there are, but I want to hear how they talk about it. And I also don't want them to give us too much because obviously I want them to unveil it in a game, not on the show. All of them kind of laugh when they like, you haven't seen anything. Yeah. Like, literally, they all have the same response. They kind of look down like, dude, this is nothing.
I'm sure we'll start seeing it this week.
And I asked, I was like, are we going to see a little more wrinkles? You'll have to wait and see. And that's, to me, again, what we saw against New Mexico looked way better than anything we saw last year.
It's true.
And if that's just the beginning and it's going to continue to be better, that doesn't mean they're going to score 50-plus every game. That's not what we're talking about here. We're just talking about a team that moves the ball efficiently, doesn't shoot themselves in the foot, gets the ball to their playmakers, and by the way, playmakers, not playmaker. Like there's multiple guys.
You could have a bet each week about which A&M receiver is the guy that's going to have the biggest game each week. Place your bets. Who's your horse?
I'm betting on everybody we have.
Well, I'm saying you pick one. Who's going to have the best game?
That's the thing. If I had to bet one, Anais.
Yeah, see, I think Anais or even Moose. Moose is my horse this week.
But I mean, let's go ahead and be honest. What was the
never
stat
have a
you
horse
gave?
moose race.
What was the stat you had on Evan Stewart yesterday? Like
he had that he's played 11 college games. You know, the first couple you just kind of think, okay, unless you're Christian Kirk, you're probably not going to have a huge game in your first college game. But 11 college games, and in 3 of 11, he's had at least 8. Well, he's had 8 catches and more than 100 yards receiving in 3 of 11 games already.
So it's hard not to say him every week.
Right.
Right? But it's also hard knowing how much football we've seen Anaya Smith play, not saying Anaya Smith. And I guess that goes back to my point. If I got to pick one, I'm thinking in this particular game, it might be Anaya.
Yeah, because if you're the Miami defense coordinator, you're going, okay, God, this Stewart guy, we got to make sure we got our best guy on him as often as possible.
But what if it's Noah again?
Well, gosh, if it's Noah, that guy had 3 touchdown passes. Well, okay, we got to make sure that we have somebody really good on him, and maybe double him at times. Okay, you only have so many guys back there, and you're gonna have to go man on man on somebody. And I'll take Anaya Smith. I still remember the touchdown pass that tied the game against Alabama in 2021. That poor old, I can't remember which DB it was from Alabama. Man, his jock was up around his helmet. The way Anaya faked him out and caught that ball in the corner. And you know what I love about that? You know how you have the security guys that are supposed to just turn around and watch the stadium? There's one, and he's watching the game, and Anaya gets that touchdown, and he's holding his arms up, and he's celebrating. I'm thinking, I am so good with that. Because in that game, at that point, I wanted everybody to be into it.
Yeah. All right, let's hit a break here. We're a little bit past. We'll come back and we'll visit the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. But right now, speaking of shirts that support our Aggies, the Charge Apparel. Yeah, it was kind of well played. I should have read the text message at the end. But now it all works out because they are Aggie-owned, which means they bleed maroon, right? They're purpose-driven apparel brand. Veteran-owned and operated, and donating all of their 12% of their total sales to organizations that support U.S. veterans and mental health initiatives. Let's talk about the guys out there. There are 2 Aggies who are class of 2014. They met in the Parsons Mounted Cavalry in the Corps of Cadets. You had Tucker as a member of E2 and Travis with Squadron 2. And upon graduating, Tucker was commissioned to the U.S. Army and Travis commissioned to the Air Force. After separating from the military, they formed the Charge Apparel as a way to continue to serve our country through their veteran nonprofits that they support. And as I've mentioned, 12% of total sales, not just profits, donated to veteran and nonprofit partners with a focus on mental health initiatives. Let's talk about the clothing. They are premier fabric, lightweight, slightly tailor fit through the chest and arms, designed to make you look and feel your best. It is the same premier fabric that supplies the likes of Lululemon and other elite brands. The website is thechargeapparel.com. Find them on Instagram, The Charge Apparel, or Twitter, The Charge Brand. And we're back. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. I'm going to have Kennedy Cavan read a couple text messages, but where is that one message I wanted to read? It is from the Bullfrog. He said, I had a TexAgs shirt in the bag at CC Creations Sunday, but put it back when I realized I had over $500 worth of stuff. Appreciate you going to our friends there at CC's.
Yeah. Appreciate you almost buying a TexAgs shirt.
It's all right. Just
almost, almost. We're getting closer.
Yeah. We almost won a couple of games last year that we should have. Yeah. But anyway, let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Kennedy Cavan.
Hey.
Hi. What's up?
Olin said I was a little quieter today than normal, so I'm going to amp it up a little bit.
Amp it.
I don't know how to do that.
All right. Just whatever. Just read
okay.
something.
Chase in Houston said, I'll say it again. I think Shannon was holding back some in his play calling for week 1. I think it will be more opened up on Saturday.
1,000%, but that's everybody in college football, right? Like, I mean, that didn't have a huge first game. Like, I mean, I think A&M did too.
Yeah, I absolutely believe that. Well, you just said the players are alluding to that.
Yeah. By the way, Chase is good friends, and I think I'm allowed to say this, with Dana Holgerson.
Oh, okay.
So he knows Shannon Dawson's and he's talking about Shannon Dawson, the University of Miami offensive coordinator. So that's where he's coming from. Look, I don't care about a lot of things. Just line up and be the man, right? Win your assignment.
Win your assignment, and don't make a lot of mistakes. Take care of the football. Don't get a lot of stupid penalties.
I think we saw them make less mistakes last week than right.
Yeah.
I think we saw a team that when they wanted to score, and of course they
most
always
of the
wanted to score.
mistakes, like penalties, were on defense.
Yeah, there were a couple of those, and then there was the illegal substitution or whatever it was. That was dumb, but whatever. Just line up in front of the dude, win your battles. You're better, you're faster, you're stronger, you're hopefully more seasoned. Let's go.
I feel confident. In those Aggies. I think it's not going to be easy. It's not supposed to be easy, but I think A&M has more talent.
Yeah, I agree. Olin, thank you very much, sir.
Yes, sir.
When we come back on this show that we call TexAgs Radio, we're going to have John Harris on. He did a deep dive on his YouTube page about the Aggie offense. I'll ask him a little bit about that. Coach G, and then Bronny at 10 o'clock and Peter Burns at 10:35. It is all that and more. You're listening to TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Thank you to our friends at CC Creations for the Go Hour. We'll be back in a bit. All right, we are back. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. So I love when people kind of break down teams that I'm interested in and like go deep dive into what works. Because we all see, like I think a lot of people, until the second viewing of a game, just follow the ball, right? Not John Harris. John Harris follows the ball, follows the O-lineman, the defensive lineman. The professor joins us here from footballtakeover.com and, of course, Houston Texans sideline reporter. Hello, Johnny.
Hi, David. How you doing?
That was a weird intro by me. The hello, Johnny. I didn't like it. I felt like that guy on. You ever see Beverly Hills Cop? Serge. I felt like Serge on Beverly Hills Cop.
Serge. Yeah, not to be confused with Berge, who was Bill Belichick's right-hand man. Serge, who was he was Balky, right? Wasn't he Balky from
Balky Bartakamos?
Yes.
Perfect Strangers.
Very much so. Yeah, I think I remember that show.
Cousin Larry Appleton.
Yes, very, very well done. What an underrated bad show.
By the way, you're
good show.
You're really good with like Heisman's from any year I throw at you. I'm good with 1980s and 90s sitcoms that nobody watched. That's kind of my claim to fame.
I mean, listen, the amount of useless knowledge that ends up in our brains for whatever reason is ridiculous. And you know, it was funny because I thought about last week when you were asking me all different Heisman winners. My buddy who grew up in Frisco before Frisco became Frisco, and it was a little country town at that point, and he was country as could be, and we would go someplace at Brown, and he would be like, "Hey, this is my roommate. This is my roommate, John. Hey, watch this. 77 Heisman Trophy winner." I'm like, "Come on, Rock. Like, we don't need to do this. Like, I'm not a party favor, man. I don't have to be answering Heisman Trophy winning questions." But then I'm like, all right, well, 77 Earl Campbell, Texas. And everybody would be like, "Oh my God, that's so awesome." I'm like, whatever, you know.
Whatevers. Hey, so I love that you did this dive, and I don't want look. I think people need to go to your YouTube page, watch it, like, comment, subscribe, all the stuff we ask you to do with TexAgs. Go become a subscriber to footballtakeover.com. But kind of give us a preview of what intrigued you so much offensively from what A&M was able to do in just one game against New Mexico.
Well, I feel like there were a few things. Number one, when a new offensive coordinator takes over, especially a guy like Bobby Petrino, who we've seen before, I want to see how he takes his chopped basket. And if you know the show Chopped on Food Network, they give a chef a basket, and it's got gummy bears and beets and cod and sunflower seeds, and you got to make a meal from that. And so I kind of think about, offensive coordinators changing teams, and they look at their basket and go, okay, well, what do we got? And I always feel like Bobby Petrino aces it because he looks at it and goes, okay, well, I got Lamar Jackson. All right, well, I'm going to do this. And then I've got Ryan Mallett, so I'm going to do this. So he opens this basket, and it's like, whoa, man, I got filet mignon receivers here. And I've got, really good potatoes, Connor Wegman quarterback. So I felt like I was curious to see how he would attack and what he would do. And one of the things that really stood out to me the most was, and has been for years with Petrino, like, you have an Achilles heel. He's going to find it. And I felt like New Mexico's Achilles heel was essentially how they were trying to match up with A&M's wide receivers. That, to me, was kind of the biggest thing that stood out. Like, wait a second. You got a tight end out wide you come out on a 3-by-1, so you got 3 wide receivers to the left and you got a receiver to the right. You're going to blitz or use some sort of pressure, and then you're going to leave a tight end and have a corner cover the tight end. Meanwhile, inside, you got Noah Thomas, and you're going to line up a safety against Noah Thomas. Well, you need to take advantage of that all day long. And I've seen a lot of offensive coordinators that don't. They get that advantage, and then they don't take advantage of it. And not only did they do it once, they did it multiple times. The other thing is, that's one mistake I felt like New Mexico made, and A&M took advantage of it. The other mistake, the Evan Stewart touchdown, if you watch it closely, you're kind of like, wait a second, what are they doing? But what A&M did was brilliant on that play because they ran an unbalanced set. So they moved the tight end over to the left side with 3 receivers on that side. Well, New Mexico never adjusted because there's no eligible receiver on the other side. Meanwhile, you got a corner sitting down there as if he's playing a tight end on that side. Well, there's no eligible receiver over there. New Mexico had to shift that entire coverage. It didn't. It decided to continue to play man coverage. And all of a sudden, you got Evan Stewart on a flat-foot safety 5 yards off the line of scrimmage. I mean, that's a side adjust. You don't even have to say anything. You just side adjust and you look in the middle of the field. And as I said when I broke down the play, I guarantee you when Connor got to his final step and he looked back, he got a pre-snap read that said there's no safety back there. When he got to his final step and saw no safety, he had to be just chuckling. Like, this is easy. I just got to throw it out there. And he put a little too much air under it to almost allow the safety back in, but he had to make sure he gave Stewart an opportunity to catch it. But those are some of the breakdowns that New Mexico had, but A&M took advantage of it. And that's what I'd love to see. I know it was fantastic, but if you look at where Noah made every single one of his catches, his touchdown catches in particular, they were all in the number 2 position or even the number 3 position, running slot fades against safeties. Now, if you're watching that and you're Miami, you're like, okay, well, we're not going to let that big guy match up on a corner. Okay. Well, who are you putting your safety on? That to me is the thing for A&M this year. Yes, I want them to run the ball. I want them to be physical. We want all that. But how do you match up when they go 10 personnel? When they put Anias with Moose and Stewart and Thomas all on the field at the same time, which I don't know if they did that the other night, and maybe they're saving that for Miami. But when they put all 4 of them on the field, that means either you have to match with 4 corners or your safety has to cover and cover well. And if you don't have a good cover safety, then all of a sudden you're going to get exploited because one of those guys is going to win a man-to-man matchup. Now, you can play a bunch of zone and sit back and let them dink and dunk, and I think they will. I think Connor absolutely will because all these guys are really good after the catch too. So you kind of have to pick your poison against the 10 personnel they can throw at you. And then if you want to play 4 corners, well, then you can run the ball, or you should be able to run the ball, and that's going to be the key. If they come out and say, all right, we're going to play nickel, and we're going to leave a safety down in the box to help with the run, but we're going to play 4 corners across the back, you better be able to run the ball against that. And that's going to be something that the Aggies have to do. And if they do that, then the Aggies have to produce big plays in the run game because now you got a bunch of corners back there, and the little guys don't really want to tackle, let's be honest. So that's where you've got to exploit that. And what I saw from Bobby Petrino and what I've seen from him is the fact that he will do that with his offense. He's got a chop basket that's got great ingredients. But now he is dictating to other teams how they're going to have to try and stop them. And I don't know that other teams can do that. I do think there's some things that have got to clean up a little bit. I think the offensive line still is not perfect, but it's good enough. And if it's good enough, Connor can get the ball off. And if he can get the ball off, that means somebody's going to get open from that group.
Is it good enough to establish the run game, which we saw a little bit of the run game, but not a lot of it? And part of that was the way New Mexico played A&M.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it, David. You hit the last part. It's like it's like an if-then argument. If New Mexico is going to do this, then we have to do this. So New Mexico basically challenged A&M to say, well, we're going to bring the blitz. We're going to bring run blitzes. We're going to twist and bring 5 and 6, and we're going to play man coverage. Okay. But then you're going to get burned. That's just the way it is. So now the challenge becomes, and I've said this often, just because they didn't do it doesn't mean they can't do it. And I think that's got to be the thing. Now it gets more difficult to run the ball this week against Akeem Mesidor and Leonard Taylor. That is a challenge. So I'm curious how Miami is going to go about this, because Cameron Kitchens is he's a great safety. Their other safety is James Williams. He's like a safety in a linebacker's body and plays like a linebacker. So if they're going to leave him on the field, A&M can exploit him in coverage. You take him off the field, well, they're going to be hurt in the run game, but they got to block those two monsters up front. That can be difficult. But just because they didn't do it, I don't think it's that they can't do it. But they got to prove they can do it against those two guys. But it doesn't need to be, well, watch us prove it, and then you give up things Miami's given to you. And that's what I loved about Petrino. Like, all right, well, if you're going to keep giving it to me, I'm going to take it. So they kept giving them 5-6 man pressure, playing man behind it with safeties covering all those receivers. Why would you change? Why would you change at that point? I'm not going to be stubborn. You're going to give it to me, I'm going to take it. You give me candy, I'm going to take it, David. And they gave Halloween bags worth of candy to Bobby Petrino.
Johnny, what about Miami's cornerbacks? Is that an area A&M can exploit?
Yes. I mean, they lost DJ Ivey and Tyreek Stevenson from last year. I don't think they've really replaced them. And again, Miami of Ohio was not the team to exploit that. That's not an offense that's going to do it. I mean, they held on for, they were hanging on to the proverbial inner tube off the back of a boat. They were just hanging on for dear life at that point. So I don't think Miami's corners have been tested, but I think they will be this week. And I think they'll get some help from safeties. My thought is Miami's going to go in this and say, all right, you got a bunch of big plays last week. Let's see if you are willing to dink and dunk your way down the field. So I think you'll see selected pressures from Miami. But I think for the most part, what you'll see is probably them play nickel and force A&M to have to run the ball. And in running the ball, have to block Taylor and Mesidor up front. I don't think that means that they're going to, the corners are going to have a walk in the park because they're going to get a bunch of help. But if I'm Miami, I'm sitting there going, man, I can't give up those big plays. I got to let my offense control the ball, and I got to take away the big plays. And I'm going to challenge A&M to go 10, 12 plays a drive and see if they'll do that. Now, I think they can do that. I think they'll definitely do that. I think there's enough experience. I think there's enough ball carriers, and I'm including the receivers in this, after the catch or in the run game that can do some good things. But I think you'll see a different attack. I think you'll see some selected pressures, but I do think you'll see some disguised coverages, not as much man-to-man coverage because their corners are not at a level they were last year with Ivey and Stevenson. So I think you'll see a lot more zone. You'll see a lot more off coverage. You'll see a lot more disguises. And so Connor's got to be good with, all right, they're showing me quarters pre-snap, but boom, they roll to a cover 3 post-snap. So he's got to get his head around a play action, all that, to see what they're doing. And then, most importantly, don't get impatient. Take the profit. Maybe the profit, and this, David, goes to one of the things I'm writing about in my keys to the game. It'll be up at footballtakeover.com. You don't always have to run the ball by turning and handing it off to somebody. You can run the ball with your screen game, with your running backs out in the flat. One thing I noticed in college football this past weekend, more than any other weekend, David, was teams throwing the ball to their running backs out of the backfield more than ever. And now they were attacking down the field. Colorado did it a bunch. LSU did on the first play of the game. They're using their backs as receivers and turning them into running backs back into running backs at that point. I think you can do that with this group of running backs. Now, they did a decent job in pass protection, but I think you can get them involved in the passing game as an extension of your run game, or to even be your run game. So if you start dropping everybody in zone, take the profit, get it out to your back. Now you're out in space. Challenge Miami to be good tacklers out in space, and I think you've got a great opportunity to move the football on them and be consistent moving the chain.
Johnny, New Mexico was not a good run team. I thought their quarterback, Dylan Hopkins, did a nice job getting the ball out quickly. That being said, the defensive line, we know they had some issues last year getting to the quarterback, stopping the run. What'd you see in game one?
I mean, New Mexico is it's a It's a tough one. I felt like this, and it wasn't just the front four, but I felt like the front six, front seven was playing faster. In particular, Edgerrin Cooper. I thought Cooper was playing, I went into 2022 thinking Cooper was, I had him in my Harris 100 thinking, man, if I saw in 2021 as a young dude, I see that development in 2022, that's going to be a guy we're talking about. He looked lost last year. He was very slow to read and react. That was not Saturday night. He was not slow to react. He was moving fast to the ball. I don't know that Miami's offensive line is very good at all. They got a young right tackle, true freshman, who's going to be a player, but they're missing Zion Nelson, who's still coming back from an injury. He's probably their best player. I think everybody else is average. This is a game that A&M has to eliminate the Miami run game completely. And Miami didn't run it well against Miami, Ohio. But what Miami did to run the ball was they used a lot of tunnel screens, a lot of quick screens and now screens to get the ball to their wide receivers and now make it a space game where their offensive line doesn't have to be an issue. A&M's interior has to turn Miami's offensive line into an issue, if that makes sense. Miami will resort to the short stuff, quick stuff. They got Shannon Dawson, who was Dana Holgerson's offensive coordinator at University of Houston. They use a lot of horizontal stuff, a lot. And that's just an extension of the run game. So that puts Cooper's game really at the forefront because that dude can fly. So he's got to be instrumental in that. I think the front four, albeit the other night, I thought it was good. I feel like with the depth that they can go, especially in a game at Miami, that depth has got to be on point because you got to roll 8-9 deep when you're playing in that humidity, in that heat. And I think that's going to be the best part of this game for A&M is that they can stay fresh up front. Not only stay fresh, the second group may almost be as talented as the first group. And I think you can be multiple with that group. Now, if you get them in long situations, as you did last year, I don't know that they've got the receivers to hurt A&M. And that's going to give, I think, the defensive line for A&M time to get there. Now, they may have to scheme a couple of things up, but I do think they'll have an opportunity to get to the quarterback and be just fine.
Johnny, what about Tyler Van Dyke? A lot of short passes in that game against Miami, Ohio. Is he the quarterback we saw a couple years ago that was a Heisman hopeful? Is he more like he was last year? How does his game kind of work with Shannon Dawson's philosophy?
It's interesting because I don't think it meshes very well. But I'm willing to give Tyler the benefit of the doubt. I like Van Dyke. I think he can make every throw you're supposed to make. He's kind of got that three-quarter arm motion. So, wearing number 9, he kind of looks a little bit like Matt Stafford when he throws it. But a lot of horizontal stuff in that passing game, like you said, Dave. And I don't know if ultimately it's a fit. But if that's the way they want to take profit and move down the field with some of those screens, Colby Young, wide receiver, that's what he took to the house. He caught a screen, broke one tackle, he's gone. That's the way they're going to want to do it. So I don't know if it's a great fit. I know last year when A&M got them in second and long, third and long, he struggled. And then when he did put the ball in point, his receivers dropped everything. But Restrepo is back, and that helps him. They're probably the most competent receiver. So he'll be the kind of go-to guy for them. But I don't know if it's ultimately a great fit yet. But A&M's got to challenge that. They got to put him on a move. They got to get him in second and third and long situations. And then at that point it becomes, okay, do you want to rush 3, drop 8, and make him throw into a tight space? Or do you want to bring 5, play some man or play some match and see if you can't get pressure on him and put him on a move? So it's going to be an interesting watch from that standpoint. I'm not sure that Van Dyke and Dawson mesh, but then again, I think Tyler Van Dyke's a really good quarterback, and I think now he's back healthy. I'm not going to bet against it. I'll say that. So I don't know if it's the great fit, but I won't bet against it.
Last thing for you, Josh DeBerry, his debut. He had a great stat line. What'd you see from him?
Well, I think he's going to end up having a pretty solid test this week, to be honest. And what he does against Miami versus what they do against New Mexico, and I think that's for everybody, David. Right. One of the things I don't dive into too much. I do kind of, I kind of don't. Week 1 stats, it can be misleading because they're going to be guys that come up with picks. pass breakups, whatever the case might be, in week 1, and then it's like, where'd that guy? Where'd he go? What's that guy going to do? I think the biggest test for anybody new on the offensive line, what's the run blocking like? Defensively, how are you tackling? I mean, it really comes down to fundamentals. I felt like overall, to Barry and everybody, I felt like fundamentally speaking, I felt like A&M was in a good spot. I felt like they were in a good spot. So the game was cleaner from that perspective than I've seen A&M, whether it was New Mexico or whomever before. And that, to me, was a good sign. Defense played much faster, and I think that comes in the second year of a DJ Durkin program. And I think everybody can benefit from that.
That is John Harris, footballtakeover.com. What do you have coming up this week? You're going to do a breakdown of the game against Miami, and what other tidbits can you provide?
Yeah. On my YouTube page at JH Football Takeover. You got to check that out. I've had a lot of Aggies check that out already. And it really wasn't, I didn't go about like, hey, I'm going to talk about the Aggies and being great, but they were just great offensively. And I just watched a half. I didn't even go further beyond that because I saw everything I needed to in half of the offense. And also I'm doing my keys to the game over at footballtakeover.com for A&M and for Miami. So that should be posted sometime whenever my wife can wake up in California and get things up there. She's probably waiting for me to send it to her because I was supposed to send it last night. But it's going up today at footballtakeover.com. So you need anything on New Mexico, you can get on my YouTube page. For Miami, you can see it on my website.
Johnny, but I didn't ask you. First game, you pumped for your Texans? You think it's going to be an okay season?
Yeah, man. I'm nervous. This is a tough team to get ready for. And I mean, a lot of people are picking them to go to the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl. So yeah, it's, being the Ravens. I kind of wanted the Ravens a little later, but then again, they're breaking a new offense. Lamar has not taken a snap in the preseason. He's not been tackled this year. So, we'll go to Baltimore. Might rain. It's scheduled to rain, so we'll see. But yeah, just pumped to get it going and kind of get in a groove and do all those kind of things. So I appreciate you asking, David.
Thank you, Johnny. Talk to you soon, bro.
All right, brother.
Love his breakdowns. Go watch that YouTube. It's awesome. All right, let's talk right now about the Association of Former Students. It's tailgate time, guys. I hope you know about that. So hopefully next time there's a big game at Kyle, you may tailgate there in Miami. But if you're here, make sure that you get the chance to celebrate with a bunch of Aggies. The first game of the season was a huge success, and the next home game is almost here. If you're still looking for a great spot to tailgate this season before each game, the Association of Former Students is excited to announce a new partnership with Revel XP to make available additional tailgating space in Aggie Park for the 2023 football season. The Aggie Spirit Lawn offers more than 60,000 square feet for tailgating with packages starting as a few $100s for a preset space with coverings and chairs, catering, and other options also available to add, and you're welcome to bring your own food and drinks to the tailgate. The lawn is situated in Aggie Park, steps away from Kyle Field and the Clayton W. Williams Jr. Alumni Center and the Moore Family Creamery. Not only is it close to all the action, but the park also provides all the amenities for you to enjoy, like walking past, restroom, Wi-Fi, and much, much more. I'm over at Milliken Reserve for a minute. If you're interested in learning more about tailgating opportunities or are ready to book a spot, visit tx.ag/Aggie Spirit Lawn. All right, we're back. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Got Coach G with us here. Coach G, I was telling you at the break, and look, this doesn't make it any better, but I feel like every game I've watched this year, you guys have been the better team for 95% of the game. Even the Florida State game, there was a huge chunk that you were the better team, I think. Yet the result wasn't there at TCU. How difficult has that been?
Well, it's been really difficult because you're right. I mean, we've been good enough to win all of these games. And we've outshot every team with the exception of Florida State, who outshot us 11-10, with the last shot being the shot that lost the game for us with 4 minutes to go. And even in this game against TCU, where we outshot them, I think 12-7. Their last shot was with 3 minutes to go in the game, and we lose 1-0, and that's after missing a penalty kick and the rebound shot after that, missing a couple breakaways, missing a couple others that you just kind of shake your head, and you got to give them credit because their goalkeeper played absolutely out of her mind, and on the Thursday night set an all-time program record for shutouts, so she's legit, but we got to win these games. And these are games that we've, you look at the law of averages and how things should come out in the wash. We have a few that should be turning our way as we go forward, because, and that's been the theme in training yesterday. It'll be the theme again today, is that, there are little technical things that we've got to take care of. And we talked about this a little bit on the radio show last night. It's to make a bit of a golf analogy here, you can't come into a round thinking that you have to shoot, 7 under. You've got to go into every shot thinking that you have to hit the shot properly, and the score takes care of itself with every shot that you hit. And we're putting ourselves in good positions because we're taking care of the little things as we go. But then it's the little things at the end that are breaking us down. It's the last pass. It's the last step. We're falling down right in front of goal, or we're looking up as we're going to shoot and we're hitting the ball over the top of the goal, or we're taking an extra touch to be extra careful, and then the shot's being blocked. So those are the little nuances that have to be straightened out. And we're not scoring on set pieces, and we're usually a very good team that scores on corner kicks and on restarts. The only goals that we've scored on set pieces have been penalty kicks, and Kenneth Caldwell last week scoring from 45 yards. Our goalkeeper comes up and scores. So when your goalkeeper is scoring on set pieces and your attacking players aren't, there's some adjustments that we can still make, and that's something that we are continuously working on in training.
I don't think we talked about that goal, but
it's a pretty good goal.
It was on SportsCenter, right? It was everywhere.
Yeah, it was like number 6 on the top 10 list in SportsCenter.
Yeah,
that's a pretty good goal. And the thing is, it's not a fluky goal. It's something that is by design. It's something that we work on, and we brought her up specifically to give it a go. And she hits the ball really well. She puts a kind of a funky spin on the ball, and kind of the deal of you don't win the lottery, you don't buy the ticket. And to put that ball into a difficult place for the goalkeeper to deal with, put it into traffic. If we can get a head on it, it changes the trajectory of the ball a little bit. And even if it doesn't, it puts it into traffic, and it's a difficult situation for the goalkeeper to deal with. And I mean, she put it like an inch under the crossbar in the corner. It was a really, really well taken ball.
One of the things you told me a couple games ago was you wanted them to be a little bit more daring. And is that when your offense is at its best, when you don't know if it's going to be a shot from 5 yards out or maybe 30 yards out, and just keeping that defense honest?
Well, we want to be aggressive in the way that we play, but you got to be realistic as well. I mean, you've got to play within your range, and you've got to know what your range is. If my range is really only 16 yards, then I need to play within that. And if my range is 25 yards, then that's realistic. And so know thyself is an important part of life, and that's an important part of what our game is. And that's really what we've been working on a lot. We've made some adjustments in our personnel to play more to our strengths, and those things have worked out well for us. It's one of the reasons why we're dominating our opponents so much, is because of some of the adjustments that we've been able to make. We've got 2 freshmen on our back line, and our defense has been rock solid. The only breakdown was the last breakdown, with 3 minutes to go in the game. And it's unfortunate. It wasn't our freshman that broke it, that had the breakdown. So yeah, again, I can't over exaggerate how pleased I am with so many parts of what we're doing. And it's just the last little pieces. And again, if we're scoring goals, we take the pressure off of our defense. Right now, our defense is having to play almost perfect because we're not finishing these double-digit opportunities that we're getting. We start finishing those chances, we relax a little bit more in the attack, and finish these chances, then it takes the pressure off of everybody else. And again, the whole thing of pressure, we play with pressure because we're expected to do well. Pressure is, we've deserved the right to play with pressure because we're Texas A&M. It's expected that you've come to Texas A&M to win, so you have that pressure. It's a privilege that you're playing for Texas A&M. So enjoy it. Enjoy what you've earned, and go out and take advantage of it. So tomorrow night, when we have Grambling coming in, Grambling, who is by far the best team in their league, they're having a great season. It's going to be a challenge. they're chock full of athletes. They've done a great job in the transfer portal of bringing in some really good players from all around the country to come and play for the Tigers. And it's going to be a very challenging game for us. They're going to be very organized. They're going to be very athletic, and they're going to give us some real challenges to be able to open them up to get in behind them. They've tied their last 3 games. So, it's going to be one that, we're going to need the 12th man out there, 7 o'clock at Ellis Field to help us out.
In your playing career and your coaching career, I'm sure you've had stretches where your team just felt unlucky.
Mm-hmm.
How do you turn? Is there something you can do to help turn in your past unluck to luck?
Well, hard work. I mean, the harder you work, the luckier you get is the way we've always looked at it. And we've been. I'll tell you, I feel like I'm the luckiest guy out there. And again, hard work and being around the people that we're around, whether it's here in Aggieland or the circumstances that we have. We're very fortunate to be where we are, and just to remember those things. Remember that God has blessed us to be here and to have the things that we have, and to be around the people that we're around, and keep that in mind. And it's not bad luck. We have things that have blessed us, and go out and take advantage of those things.
One last thing too. It seems very difficult, but once it gets back on track, and I feel that you feel it's going to get back on track,
Mm-hmm.
going through this will really get your team in the right. You've gone through these battles to help you set up for conference play.
Of course, and conference play starts next week. Kentucky comes to town next Friday, so it's these are lessons that we're learning, and they've been hard. They've been hard lessons, but those are the lessons that you open your eyes for. And there are a lot of the SEC right now. We have the highest winning percentage of any league in the country. Is that a surprise? No, it's the SEC.
Right.
So we have intentionally gone out and battle tested ourselves because our intentions are to compete, and we've won 6 SEC titles. This is what the soccer team has done. We prepare ourselves to battle in the SEC, and we've put ourselves in positions in these tough games. Unfortunately, they haven't gone our way yet because we want them to go our way here in the next, hopefully next 30 hours from the time we're doing this interview, but to put ourselves in position to win those big battles as we go forward.
Thank you, Coach G.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. When we come back, an open segment next on TexAgs. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Appreciate Coach G and Johnny Harris. Got an open segment here. We're going to preview up to the second college football here in a moment. But I want to ask this question, and you can text us if you have some ideas, or you can call to 979-693-1150. Just want you guys, look, I don't want to say like I don't want to sound like a coach or a player, take it one game at a time. But in a way I am, because I don't think you can like read too much into anybody's performance this past weekend. Like, look, I'm reading a lot into LSU's because I think it did expose some real weakness on that team. But they have plenty of season to figure things out, right? But when it comes to the A&Ms, the Alabamas, the Miamis of the world, like what we've seen in one game, I don't think is enough for me to make a huge determination. But some things did pop up. But let's for a moment consider, what if Connor continues to go off? Right? And continues to play at this level. And what if Jalen Milroe continues to go off, right? Because both these teams this weekend, both of them have these matchups where I think you have to, like, you're going to know a lot about Alabama this weekend. You're going to know a lot about Texas. You're going to know a lot about Bama. You're going to know a lot about A&M. You're going to know a lot about Miami, right? Because this is the real marquee matchups, non-conference games. I know that Notre Dame, NC State, there's some other games that are quite appealing as well. But there was a question, and I don't think the question is really out there anymore, about the A&M offense. How's it going to look? How's the partnership with Jimbo? And those questions will continue until A&M's in some, heated games or a potential game that they could lose. Like, that's where those questions will really pop up, where people will psychoanalyze. But there was a question about Jalen Milroe, and again, in just one game, what do we really know? But he looked good in that one game, that first test. There's not a lot to point bat at. But what if those guys continue to ball out, and what that could set up here at Kyle Field in a month. Like, then we're talking about a complete because a couple years ago, that was kind of the vision. All right, if A&M can get through Colorado, which they did barely, get through Arkansas, which they didn't, and get through Mississippi State, which they were supposed to, they didn't, would set up this amazing matchup between top 10 teams in Alabama and A&M. And then last year, before App State and all the drama, you were still thinking, maybe it's possible to have that dream matchup. Well, now, you could potentially have that dream matchup. It's still in there. It's still possible out there. I don't want to jump way ahead of me, but that scenario does exist to where if A&M continues to play at a certain level, and Jalen Milroe, he's got a huge matchup this weekend. And again, I don't know how much to read into last year and this year because Texas playing at home. Quinn was really good in that first half. Bryce Young did what Bryce Young does. And he just is Harry Houdini out there finding magic at certain moments. But if he can continue in that direction, and there's still a big if, it could set up a huge matchup, which brought me to a question that I didn't get into with OB, but who's got the most to lose this weekend? Because if A&M were to lose to Miami, they lose a lot, but there's plenty of room to make it up. Ole Miss loses to Tulane, I think they lose a lot, like absolute lot, right? There's no doubt about that one. If Colorado loses to Nebraska, I think they're playing with house money already. If Notre Dame loses to NC State, they'll drop significantly, but they've got some matchups out there. There is a team out there, and by the way, I think if Bama loses to Texas, they have way more to lose than Texas has if they lose to Bama. Plenty of season left, but I think those are teams that have way more to lose. If Miami loses to A&M, they're not picked to win in Vegas. So they lose to A&M, they lose to A&M. Yeah, they get them at home. Yeah, they're probably upset about that because we've heard some of the social media reports out there. What if Oklahoma loses to SMU at home? The way the offense looked last week for Oklahoma, I don't see that happening. But how about L.J. Johnson, how he looked for SMU and what that offense can do? As when it comes to what A&M can do, it does not fall on Connor's shoulders. It does fall on the team's shoulders, right? This has got to be, this team this year, not this game, this year, has to be all about the team. Anyway, Up to the Second College Football does come out this afternoon. Looking forward to another great episode. Caroline Fenton and Billy Lucci will have some great SEC analysis, and our featured guest of the week is from Alyssa Lang of the SEC Network. I'm going to play just a little tidbit from that interview so you guys can watch it all, where she does talk a little A&M with us. Here's a little teaser from Up to the Second College Football. Let's get our next guest, Alyssa Lang from ESPN and SEC Network. She's at all the big games. She'll be at Georgia Ball State this upcoming weekend. Alyssa, thanks for joining us. How are you?
Thank you guys for having me. I'm well. We've got SEC football back and actual game storylines to talk about rather than recycled fall camp things. So life couldn't be better right now.
As a talk show host, my job has become so much easier as opposed to recycling the same takes. But I'm kind of recycling a thought with a new spin, all right? So a lot of new OCs out there. Some struggled, some did not. Maybe a shameless plug for what Bobby Petrino was able to do with A&M. Just your thoughts on some of those new situations out there. Obviously, the Clemson game from the other night, that was a rough one, at least from an offensive perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with what you just said about Texas A&M, right? I think so many of us, A&M fans probably included, breathing a huge sigh of relief in that everything we've been saying for the last few months feels like it's coming to fruition as far as what that offense looked like and what the play calling was going to look like from Bobby Petrino. I mean, going back and watching that game on Sunday when I got back from where I was in Starkville, I was impressed just from the fact that, okay, we are starting from the baseline that Texas A&M should be starting at this year. When you go back to last year and you look at some of those non-conference early games, you're not putting up the type of numbers that you put up this past weekend in your opener. So for Texas A&M to do that, to take care of business in that way, and for Connor Wigman to run the offense in the way that we saw him do so, spreading the ball around to so many different targets, having that balance that you'd like to see, I'm buying stock on Texas A&M even more than I was before in fall camp, which I was cautiously doing, but now I'm drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit faster rather than sipping it as I was in fall camp.
All right, that is Alyssa Lang on Up to the Second College Football. Look, the national narrative starting to change, guys. I'm just telling you. Not that she's been anti-A&M. By the way, when we get Peter Burns on the show, the SEC Network crew, their teams, a lot of their teams, Roman Harper, Bama did fine, right? And there's a bunch that did fine. But you look at Peter Burns and his love for LSU, how their weekend went. Alyssa in South Carolina, her weekend went from a fan perspective. Chris Doering and Florida, they were early. They were 6 days ago, yet they were a storyline. I don't know why it was that much of a shock other than, Cam Rising didn't play for Utah. But those folks that are not scared to share their love for their universities, they absolutely did not have a good weekend. All right, we'll hit a break. We'll try to get to your text messages here on TexAgs Radio and also some of your thoughts on the YouTube page. Have you liked, comment, subscribe, become a subscriber to our YouTube page. Hello to our folks at the CW and, of course, The Zone. We'll be back here in a few. And we are back, TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. Chris Cobb, I don't usually like to read compliments, but what a nice comment on the YouTube page. Great show, David. Best show in college football. That is fantastic. And that was the case before I got here, by the way, so I'm happy to carry the mantle. Thank you very much. And I'm not going to read your other one, Chris, because there is a bad word in that one, so I'll pass on that one. But beat the hell out of University of Miami, absolutely, by 5 touchdowns. Agree with that assessment. By the way, when are the Vultures going to come for Dabo Swinney? Those same Vultures that came after Jimbo Fisher, they're getting ready. It becomes a thing in social media and media culture to you pray. Who can we talk about and psychoanalyze everything? And I'm not saying that Dabo doesn't deserve everybody saw the sidelines when Kate Klubnik didn't give him fist pound. I don't know. Maybe he didn't see him. Maybe there's a relationship issue. I don't read into stuff like that. It is what it is. If there's an issue, it'll come out. But I do know how this industry works, and they do pick people to go after. And Dabo is on the chopping block, my friends. If he loses another game he's not supposed to, it's coming after him. Not that I expect Clemson to go 5-7 and have some of the failures that we saw here at Texas A&M. But I'm telling you, he's the next one up. Other than him, Nick, other than Dabo, who do you think? Brett Venables, if they were to have a rough year, I don't think they'd come after him yet. Lane Kiffin, I don't think yet. I think the media likes him.
Yeah.
Who? Lincoln Riley, if USC struggles a little bit. If they lose to Utah again and they lose some other games,
no, I don't think so because, he did so well last year. I think he's kind of bought himself a little good grace. But, I don't know about Brett Venables there at Oklahoma. I feel like if they struggle again, you could definitely see the Vultures coming for him, in my opinion. But, Dabo's one.
Dabo's already kind of there.
Yeah, it seems like it, especially with that one, the Twitter clip, like you said, of Cade kind of blowing off the high five or whatever he was trying to do. But, that can just be anything from, he's frustrated in game, which I'm sure is exactly what it was, to, maybe there is a relationship issue, but nobody knows. No one really knows.
Yeah. Look, I think there's a lot of people that don't like Dabo. I actually like the guy.
I do too.
I think he's very likable, and he's a proven winner, and it's hard to win in college football, and I think he's very likable.
You know why I think, sorry to interrupt you, but you know why I think it would be okay for the Vultures to kind of come for him is because he's refused to use the transfer portal and stuff to his advantage.
But there's a part of me that kind of respects that too.
Yes,
if it works.
True. But put yourself in a Clemson fan's perspective. If you are a Clemson fan and you're hearing your coach say, no, we're not going to use a transfer portal, and every other program in the country is utilizing it, and you're getting beat on a regular basis, if that starts to happen, that's going to get old real quick.
Absolutely. It will get. And here's the thing. And by the way, you can adapt. People can change, right? Jimbo changed in the offseason, guys. He did. I know people don't want to, give him credit for it. He was for it. No. He was saying it during the press conferences. Yeah, things have got to change. And he did. So, look, I kind of like that Dabo was anti-portal, but I also think you got to adapt to the situation you're in.
You kind of be like Jimbo. Jimbo's, or not just him, but I feel like 90% of the coaches in college football have come out and said, this is not good. We need some way to fix this. But they're going to use it to their advantage because, you kind of have to. So I don't think any of them liked it really, but, You got to do what you got to do to win.
No, yeah, and look, and by the way, like, I kind of get it because I'm almost a dinosaur in this industry. I don't like social media. I'm like, oh, look, I ate eggs. Like, it's not, oh, here's a shirtless pic from Walmart.
Whoa.
What I'm just saying, like, I don't do that. Like, that's not my, like, you know, I
Are we
understand.
gonna get a gym review from wherever you're staying in Miami? Hotel gym review?
It's possible. You know the reason I sometimes don't do things? Because the vultures that work in this office, the little snaps.
That was all-time content. I think you do need to bring that back.
Well, the people in this office that send little snaps to each other. Look at Nuño. He's at the gym shirtless or sleeveless.
I don't have a Snapchat.
Not you, the others. The text messengers that have the little group text. I'm aware of way more than you think, guys. I need to be on one of these
All-seeing Nuño.
I want to be in a group text to make fun of people, but I'm
not
just not
in any
invited.
group texts either, by the way. So.
Hey, can you tell the people what Jose Altuve did? Something very
3
similar
home
to
runs and 3 at-bats.
Huh.
Pretty nuts. 5 home runs and I think 7. We got to go quick. But the Rangers are no longer in a playoff spot. Very funny.
Oh, sorry, guys. Ryan Broniger, next. Welcome back in TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. It is now time for Recruiting Country, presented by Caprock Health System, a faster patient-centered revolution in care with 2 ERs in the BCS. You've got the original 24-hour ER in South College Station on William D. Fitch and the full-service hospital with ER in Bryan on Briarcrest. Find them online at caprockhealthsystem.com. Ryan Broniger. Hello, Ronnie.
Good morning, good morning, good morning.
I don't know if you heard the end of our last segment, but Nick had a little props to Jose Altuve.
Well, yeah, I mean, what a ridiculous run he just went on. Was he 7 for 7 with 5 homers at one point?
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, he has come back with a vengeance. And you know what? When he first came back from injury, I was like, man, does he seem less engaged now that he's gotten old? He's a little bit older now, and like, you know, at that point, Houston wasn't playing great baseball. I think they were 6.5 games out of first place, and it was like, he was. I don't know. I just watched his body language a little bit, and I was like, is he disengaged more so than he has been in years past? And I would say that the answer to that is no, he is not disengaged. I think he's very much locked in right now, and you know it's still early to be gloating and pounding your chest, but they are, and they lead the division right now by a game. And what was it in May? They were 6.5, 7.5 games out. So thanks to a collapse by the Texas Rangers and some good baseball by the Astros, and I also think the Seattle actually, if you're asking me today,
the Mariners are going to win.
I think the Mariners are the best team in the division.
Yeah,
I do. I think they're the most complete team.
But they do have I think, rougher schedule.
They do.
Than
the Astros get a bunch of I think they get the A's and the Royals. So the 2 worst teams in the American League, the Astros have got a series with them going in here the final stretch.
And I think both the Astros and Mariners have gone 6-4 in their last 10 games.
I think the Astros are 7-3 in their last
7-3.
in their last 10. Yeah, I was looking at that this morning.
Okay, good.
But anyway, I've also spent my morning, you know, dealing with stuff that not drama. It's not drama. I just. You know, what we do week in and week out is we go across the state of Texas and we want to promote high school football games, high school football players through a giant megaphone that we have here at TexAgs. And just some ISDs make that more difficult than it needs to be. And so just kind of trying to work through that and make sure they understand what we do, how we do it, how we've done it for a long time, and also the platform that we have. It's just... it's not disappointing. I'm not angry. It's just, it's kind of crazy to me that with the reputation that we've built, that it's still tough for us to get media credentials at some high school football games in Greater Houston. And it won't stop our coverage. If they decide that they don't ever want to credential us, that's fine. Their kids will never get promoted on our platforms. And then when there are kids in that ISD that maybe are committed to Texas A&M or A&M has great interest in, we'll have to go catch them whenever they're playing away games. And so that also limits the opportunity for exposure for your own ISD, your own facilities, all that kind of stuff. So we'll see. We're working through it this morning, though.
Friday, we talked to you for a few minutes, but Dominic McKinley now is in the fold. And
and that was, we hadn't talked to, like, that was before he committed. And it's crazy, man. Like, genuinely, at the first of the week when all the A&M stuff started to happen last Monday, me and Jason started calling around, and it was kind of like, believe it when we see it kind of thing. So there was a hint of smoke, but there wasn't enough to make me think that there's a fire on the other side of, you know, what we can't see. But as the week went on, it was just like A&M, the consistent player, A&M, and LSU, A&M and Texas, A&M and OU. It was always A&M and somebody else. And when it came down to decision day, he picked the Aggies. So by the time I'd spoken to you on Friday on the radio about it, I was still at 75% sure that he was picking A&M, but that was up from on Monday at like 20%. And
Quickly it changed.
And just kept going and going and going. Because when you have kids like he and Blake Ivy where the things are kept so close to the vest, you're just going off, and the kid's not telling anybody anything. And you'll hear, oh, well, this coach said something about this. And, like, it's just grapevine stuff, right? But it's not tangible evidence. And, like, I just wonder, and I've never talked to other people that do what Jason and I do in the industry, but, like, what is enough evidence for them to switch a crystal ball or switch a recruiting prediction? Because for us, the stuff that we had heard, if I had to put my life on the line or my reputation as an analyst on the line by making a prediction, I still wouldn't have done that for A&M until like Friday at, he announced at 3:30.
Yep.
Friday at 2:30. Friday at 2. So that's how late that we had gotten enough information where we felt really good about it. You know what I'm saying? And that happens at different timelines with recruitments. With the Blake Ivy one, I wouldn't have gone there until like the night before he announced. But when you have these kids that don't do media and they're not talking to people, you're just kind of having to rely on sources and triangulate information that you're getting from a lot of different people. Okay, well, I talked to this guy and he said this, but what does this guy really know? Who is he talking to? So you just kind of keep diving deeper and deeper to try to figure out who's got real intel. But I mean, what a recruiting job by Elijah Robinson, DJ Durkin, Mason Smith on the recruiting staff played a huge role for the Aggies. And you land the number one player in the state of Louisiana. And you add him to a defensive line room that's on campus that is already crazy talented. And you add him to a defensive line class that is looking better and better by the week when you consider how guys like Dalen Evans and Gabriel Relaford are both playing right now. And I think they could go out and they could add another one if they wanted to. But I think if they stop with what they've got right now, I think they'd be perfectly happy. So they're getting into these deals now. You know, we'll talk about Xavier Atkins in a minute, but there are certain positions where you feel really good about what you got. And now I can go, okay, if I'm going to add somebody else to this group, it's going to be a guy that's at the very top of our board.
Right.
But if we don't add anybody else, we're like, we don't need to take a guy just to take a guy at that spot. And that's not been a recruiting tactic for them since Jimbo's been here. He doesn't just offer guys and take guys to take them. I've actually liked that about his recruiting strategy and his policy is like, we're not taking guys unless we think that they can help us get to where we want to go. We're not going to take guys to fill a depth chart. So they're in a good spot with their overall number of commits heading into the season. Again, now that we've started playing actual football, you know, those results are going to matter quite a bit to what happens on the recruiting front between now and December and now in February.
That brings me to a question that's not A&M related but could be. I believe, if I read it correctly, that you posted TCU had a big contingent, right? Mm-hmm. They had a bunch of kids out there. How did that performance against Colorado? Does it move the needle at all? Does it do anything? I'm just curious.
I mean, yeah, probably for Colorado it did.
Yeah.
And I think that, I mean, there's been a lot of hype around the Colorado program. And when you go out and you win a game and there's now substance to all that hype, I think Deion Sanders is going to recruit well if things keep going that way. Now, if that was the fluke and an outlier, he's going to have a tough time. But he answered a lot of critics from national media, but also on the recruiting side of, you know, what does this look like? And what does his recruiting strategy look like going forward now, too? Because he just brought in what was the crazy number, 80-something transfers. Is that how he's going to build his rosters from now on because he's had some early success with it? Or does he want to kind of phase that out and rely more on the high school recruiting as well? Because of all those guys, I don't know how many freshmen played for them. You know, how many guys that he signed got on the field. I haven't even looked that up. But, yeah, that's kind of a shot across the jaw of TCU because you brought in, like, you were the show, and a lot of it had to do with the hype surrounding Colorado, but you were the show in the state last week in terms of recruits, and you went in there, and I guess you played okay, but the final result, I mean, not one person is talking about TCU anymore.
Nope.
Everybody's talking about Colorado.
Dylan Evans, he was in. Did I say it correctly?
Dalen,
sorry. Dalen Evans was.
He was in Fort Worth.
He was in Fort Worth.
Yeah, but Florida. And again, I don't know. Some of this is social media bound, so I hesitate to even talk about it. Or it's coming from social media. But Florida continues to make some sort of push, whatever that means. Dalen has been really pretty locked in with A&M since he made his commitment way back when, and he has been one of the lead guys helping A&M add to this class. Now, I know Florida's got a good class. I think a lot of the movement from Florida or the pressure from Florida is coming from obviously their coaching staff, but I think DJ Lagway in state is helping them with Dalen being Texas guys. And, we'll see how their season goes. I just don't know. At this point, I'm not worried about Dalen Evans leaving the class. He's having a great year. He's been locked in. He's wanted to play for Elijah Robinson. He's super close with all the guys in the A&M class. He's close with a lot of the guys on the team now. Like, I just think part of it is the recruiting game that you see every cycle, trying to stir stuff up. I do think there are certain people that, and it might be because they're given quotas to meet every week for content, and so they've got to find stuff.
They got to find ways, yeah.
So I do think some of the stuff that's being put out could be just that. Like, I'm not saying that Florida's not making a pursuit of Dalen Evans. I actually think they are, but the effectiveness of it, I think, could be overestimated based off what you see on social media. Dalen has been nothing but locked in terms of our perception and our knowledge of the recruitment.
Talking to Ryan Browninger here at Recruiting Country. If you have a question for Bronny, you can do that multiple ways. You can text the show 979-693-1150. You can also mention it on the YouTube page, and we'll get into a bunch of these. I see them as they're coming in. All right, Ryan, let's talk about Devin Sanchez. You had that he visited on Saturday, correct?
Yeah, he was probably the premier visitor. I mean, you had Draylon Miller in town, and he's a superstar. But in the 2025 class, you only had two kids come in. They were both really highly touted corners. North Shore's Devin Sanchez and then Katie Peto's Dejon Petaway. And those are two of the best corners in the state, not only for that 2025 class, I should say, not only in the state, but also in the country. And, Devin has been very adamant with us, or with me when I've talked to him, that what's happened with A&M and North Shore has nothing to do with him and his recruitment. What happened with Denver Harris once he got on campus has nothing to do with Devin Sanchez and his recruitment. I actually think A&M's biggest challenge right now in that one, and it's super early. A lot can happen with that class. I think A&M's in a great spot, but I think their biggest challenge right now would probably be Ohio State. Not just A&M. I think any other teams in the region that are pushing to get in that recruitment, I think Ohio State may be out front early. But he likes A&M. He came and he could spend some time in the locker room afterward with some of the guys, and I think that A&M's a very real contender for one of the top players in the country in 2025. And look, man, like I know kind of the pursuit that A&M's made already for this kid, and you'd have to peg him at the very top of their board in that class. Like he's a really good-looking prospect.
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah. And how much is it still being considered, the whole culture, the fit with guys being friends and fitting in this? I mean, that's all going to be a part of their evaluations moving forward. Not to say it wasn't before, but maybe a higher importance.
Yeah, I think, maybe with that 22 class, they look like we're just going to assemble the biggest talent as we can across the board and be hopeful that the rest works itself out. And I think that's kind of changed to, all right, we need to find the best talent available that's going to fit with what we're doing. And the camaraderie amongst the 2024 class, I think, has been extremely good, especially I think that run in the summer of those Southeast Texas kids, not because they're all friends together, but they're so tied into everybody else. I think Miles Davis was big in that point. Like, it's gotten the wave rolling not only of commitments, but commitments and camaraderie and just growing the group together as a whole. And I talked to Ashton Funk about that and about how much more that they're, the group chat has grown and just getting to know everybody. And, it's going to take a certain level of that because of how many out-of-state guys they've got right now. Mm-hmm. It's easy for the Texas kids. I mean, they see each other on social media. They've seen each other at camps. They've got some familiarity with each other. But the national guys, you're talking about A.J. Maddox, who's had a fantastic year in Mississippi, Jordan Lockhart, who has been all over the field out there in California, all the way to New Jersey, and Miles O'Neal, so everywhere in between, and Eric Carner in Illinois. So it's going to take some effort to build the camaraderie, and I think they've done that.
All right, some text messages coming in about the wide receiver situation. Let's start there. The room next year, what it could look like, and just considering what they have now and what's in the future. Let's talk about that.
What the room could look like. How many guys are you going to lose?
Aeneas? Moose?
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But
maybe.
He's potential, right?
Yeah.
Aeneas and Moose?
Aeneas is the only one that you know you're going to lose. Now, who you adding?
Got some
Cam
dudes.
Coleman,
yeah,
who has been just as advertised, 5-star for a reason. Draylon Miller, best football player in the state. Ernest Campbell can flat out fly. DeBron Gatling, Jalen Horns. Like, now you're talking about a receiver room that is not only elite at the top, it's elite within its depth too. And so that 2024 receiver room will be as talented. Now, who knows if they're going to be as good?
Sure.
And I've had conversations with people in town that trying to differentiate to make sure they understand about the talent right now on the A&M roster, that just the pure raw athletic talent is probably the best we've ever seen in the schools.
From a talent standpoint.
Just a raw talent. Does that mean they're any good? Who knows?
Right.
There's a difference between you're either a prospect or you're a player or you're both, right? They've got an incredible group of prospects over there. They've got to turn into players. You understand what I'm saying?
Sure, yeah.
So that's what we're talking about. So when I look at the receiver room next year, I mean, could anybody ever top that 2012 receiver room in terms of player? Mike Evans, Ryan Swope, Easy Wachiku, real players. Malcolm Kennedy, those were players. They showed up on Saturday. They were also good prospects, but they were real players. So that's the transition that we're looking for. We think Evan Stewart's an elite player. We think Noah Thomas is an elite player.
We know Aeneas is.
Right? So they're trending in that direction. But when you're talking about just the talent, athletic gifts, that 2024 receiver room might be the best we've ever seen.
And what about Micah Hudson? Anything new there?
And that's another one. That's when I said that they could be stand pat and be fine at position groups. Receiver is one of them. If they don't add another receiver to this group, they're fine with it. But if they do, it's going to be a guy like Micah Hudson, or maybe even on a more outside shot, Ryan Wingo. But Micah Hudson, I'm going to go see him tomorrow. He has just been electric in his first 2 weeks on the field. You have to wonder, does Texas Tech, who's been the presumed leader from start to finish, well, not even finish, but from the start of this recruitment, you have to wonder if them losing to Wyoming in the way that they did catches his attention, or are those the bonds of the coaching staff so strong that it really ain't going to matter what they do on the field. I know A&M has been in contact. I know A&M was kind of sneakily behind the scenes made a huge move up over the summer. And so I'm going to go out there, watch him play, and just kind of see where he's at in terms of what he's looking at currently, and then kind of what his timeline looks like going forward. But
you know who Tech plays this weekend? Oregon.
Yeah.
So it
in Lubbock, yeah.
Yeah, in Lubbock, but it could get ugly fast for them.
Yeah, it what do they say? It could get late early.
Yeah.
It could get late early for and I think Joey McGuire's a great coach.
I do too.
I think he's a fantastic recruiter. You got into one of those weird nights where you're playing in a non-P5 place and in Wyoming, like it felt weird. And I was watching that game going, Wyoming's gonna. Like, it just felt like Wyoming was gonna win the game. And regardless, it's not. You can say all that stuff, but it ain't a good look for the Red Raiders, and especially with a guy that you have been so staunchly in the lead for so long, and he is the clear-cut best best receiver in the state of Texas and one of the best in the country. You got to know that other schools are going to be circling like sharks and smelling blood in the water as soon as Wyoming ran that final 2-point conversion in.
I want to continue on that path when we come back, plus get to some questions, because I want to ask you the reviews so far of the A&M offense, how that paints a different picture than what others were trying to They got to continue it. It's just one game, but I'm just saying, like, now there's going to be some tangible evidence and how that could really help moving forward. We'll get into more with Bronny here on Recruiting Country, brought to you by Caprock Health. And we are back. TexAgs Radio presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, Recruiting Country, brought to you by Caprock Health System, emergency care and patient care and imaging. All right, let's get into some of these questions that are coming in here on the hotline. Jeff in College Station wants to ask, Ryan, how is O'Neal's season, the quarterback, going?
I think they start this week. They started way later than everybody else.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, he may not even start for another week. I have to look at his schedule, but I know that like they just went into like preseason camp a week ago, so he may have another week of practices before they're starting up.
Let's get to the next one, and it is running backs from Bunglers. Talk to us about running backs and their recruits from
That's
Bunglers.
the position that's got the biggest question mark and the foggiest picture surrounding it right now because they kind of went national. They was looking at some of the guys in state they went after, and I don't know, like I think, like I said a couple weeks ago, they're just kind of in a look at the in-state crop again after a couple of weeks of film come out and kind of make some decisions. Do we want to re-engage with a Kawan Lacey or a Kedron Young or a Derek McFall? I know they're not going to go anywhere on Taylor Tatum. Or are there some guys that do not have offers currently that are putting up good numbers and putting out good tape that we want to go ahead and make offers to? I just think we're in a holding pattern, a wait and see on running backs. I also don't think it's a position that you have to go out and, like, you could probably portal one if you needed one.
Sure.
You know, and because you're going to have – if everybody's happy at the end of the year –
You're going to have people calling you.
What do you mean?
I'm saying, like, portal-wise, if this season goes the way I think it will, you're going to have running backs
sure,
calling
but like
you.
I also think that you could have Amari Le'Veon and Reuben come back.
Yeah.
And then that's why I do think you want to go get a high school guy to put behind them. Like, you could portal it if you want, but what portal guy's going to want to come in and share carries with those guys?
I get that, yeah.
But, you know, so I just think that they can be a little thorough with their evals and go through it. I would imagine that you're going to see a name pop up maybe for that next home game, but if not for that one, then I would think by the middle of the year they're going to have moved. We'll either know the direction that they've re-engaged with somebody that's committed elsewhere or they've offered some new guys.
We're 25 minutes in, and we've only alluded to, but we haven't broken down. What's the latest with Xavier Atkins, who I think is committing pretty soon?
Next week, and still think A&M's in a good spot. He was pretty tuned in to the LSU game the other night, and kind of depending on where you look, he's either committed or very softly committed to LSU. A&M's been in a good spot. Arkansas continues to make a push. Utah's another one that looked really good on opening night. That's been in his ear quite a bit. And but I felt good about where A&M's at, and I make some calls this week in Houston and this weekend just to kind of check back in and kind of see what the overall landscape looks like. But this is one that the Aggies have really been on since the pool party, and if he makes this decision and it's going to be A&M, that would be another one where you point back to the pool party and said that's where it was completely locked down.
And that's been a story for this program the last couple of years. The pool party seems to be a line in the sand moment for a lot of these guys.
Yeah, we say it all the time. It's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, recruiting date, or it's become that way since Jimbo has been here. Hi, Kennedy.
Kevin had a meeting.
Oh, a meeting.
Yeah,
they
call meetings during the show, apparently.
Oh,
I was in a meeting for tailgates, and then I had to help with a podcast.
She's very busy right now. She's like wearing a bunch of hats.
I was reading.
That's the second time somebody said that today about me.
You wear
wearing a bunch of hats.
Have you ever do you don't wear hats at all?
I'm not a hat girl.
I'm not a hat guy. You asked me to wear a hat earlier.
A birthday hat.
I'm gonna wear a birthday hat. That's how I roll. And we do got a couple of text messages there at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center that we'll get to here momentarily. But let's continue down the path. Did you have anything else you were going to say about Atkins? I'm sorry.
No, I think my focal point next week will be the linebacker group. And I was encouraged personally, and who knows, it's one game against a really, really bad team. But I was encouraged by what I saw at Torian York.
Mm-hmm.
Damian Sanford came in late, and I thought he was physical and not scared and not timid, and made a couple of tackles. And then Chance Johnson flying down the field on a kickoff return, almost made the tackle on the opening kickoff, and then made one later in the game. So encouraged by that group that came in that wasn't as highly lauded as the rest of the recruiting class, and specifically some of the other guys that were in the recruiting class. But they're coming in and they're ready to play. And then could you back it up, that class, with a group with Jordan Lockhart, Ty Anthony Smith, Tristan Jernigan, and then do you add a fourth in Xavier Atkins? And you'd go, man, that's back-to-back years where maybe that 23 class, nobody talked a lot about what they did on the recruiting trail in terms of hype, but they showed up and their players and DJ Durkin took over that position. And look, shout out to Tyler Santucci and Mike Yelko. What a performance the other night on defense.
Heck yeah.
But we kind of wondered what DJ Durkin's influence on the recruiting of the position would look like when he took it over full time. And it's going in the right direction. There's nothing – it's funny. People ask me about what I think about the football team, and it's the same way I feel about a lot of things. And there's nothing definitive yet. We really don't know anything yet. I'm encouraged by what I saw.
You got to be.
I'm encouraged by the way DJ Durkin has recruited at linebacker. I'm encouraged by the way he's coached the position, these young guys making strides early. So we'll see.
Kevin at the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. There's a question from PG Ag in King Oaks. We don't have to ask about running back, but there's another one out there to ask about.
Can Brownie talk a little bit about cornerback?
That's nothing's changed in terms of A&M's pursuit of Terry Bussey and Kobe Black. And I'm a little greater than 50% sure that Terry Bussey's not going to stick to that September 28th decision date. I think that's going to be moved back, but I don't know that for sure. But I think it's going to be moved back. He's going to take some visits. LSU's in that thing. A&M's in that thing. Texas is in that thing. Alabama's in that thing. Kobe Black looks like it's coming down to A&M and Texas, but LSU, once again, is in that one too. Also, he's got ties to Oklahoma State. So we'll see if the Cowboys can really make some hay. But that one looks like it's A&M or Texas in the pendulum swinging back and forth. So nothing really changed in terms of those. Jason went and saw the kid at Tulsa Union to start his season. He thinks he's going to make a decision soon, and if that's the case, it probably won't be the Aggies. The Aggies have really zeroed in on Black and Bussey being their guys in this class. So it's going to take a huge effort on the field and off to make that happen, but they can do it.
Where's your crew going to be this week?
We're all over the place, man. Well, I guess, with what I said earlier, we're not totally sure on everything just yet.
I think it'll work out.
Yeah, hopefully it'll work out. But I'll tweet that out from our TexAgs recruiting. We'll have our full list of games here shortly. But I know I am tomorrow going to see Lake Belton against Red Oak, and Red Oak is a team out of Dallas traveling to Central Texas that has, some real talent on it and 3 A&M offers. And then on Friday, I'm going to be at Katy versus Katy Tompkins. And the interesting thing about that game, 2 of the best programs in the city of Houston, both coming off losses last week. Katy Tompkins, in a thriller shootout, loses to Bridgeland. Shout out Lonnie Madison.
Yeah.
Who's got Bridgeland. I mean, they look – when Connor was there, they had it rolling. But Bridgeland looks like they're a force to be reckoned with this year. And then Katy dropped one to Atascocita. And I said before the season –
How surprising was that?
To me, this is the best window, the best chance Atascocita has had to break through that Katy North Shore line because they've got the amount of talent they've got this year. They beat Katy by 8 on Friday night. Really good game from what I understand. I wasn't there, just talking to some people that were there. It was like really entertaining back and forth. So it wasn't surprising because Atascocita's got, it's a great program. Coach Stump, former Texas A&M quarterback, Craig Stump, the head guy there. And they've got a long history of producing elite players. So it's not a surprise, and it shouldn't be a surprise. But, I asked if anybody could unseat Katy and North Shore in Houston, and then Atascocita goes out and does that.
Take care of business.
They're going to have a shot at doing it against North Shore later on in the year.
Yep. Thank you, Bronny.
Yep.
Appreciate you. Right now we're talking Milliken Reserve farm-to-table community in College Station. They've got homes. They've got trails. They've got farms. They've got wide open spaces with a mission to build a healthy community around nature, and they've done that by committed to treading lightly on the land that Milliken Reserve is found on, creating a sanctuary for family, for nature, and for community. They're dedicated to the conservation of a very healthy community, respect for that native landscape, and it's just a beautiful place to go hang out. 2,600 acres of open space, farms, and 30 miles of trails and homes. And they've got this extensive network of trails throughout a wooded landscape that includes these walking paths, these equestrian paths, creeks and ponds, and gathering areas. A place for family to cherish for generation after generation. and they're committed to maintaining and restoring that natural habitat. And when you go there, you're going to see all the animals you want, from the white-tailed deer, the songbirds, the rabbits, the turtles. It's a great place to just go. Connect with your family, connect with each other. You can go hiking out there. You can go biking. You can go canoeing. You can go kayaking. You've got equestrian trails. You've got the evening yoga, which is fun, the summer camps, the music festivals, the farmer markets, and the farm tours. We get our veggies there often. It's such a great little service that they have out there. You can learn more at millikenreserve.com. That website, again, is millikenreserve.com. All right, we're back. TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the hotline and talk to the SEC Network's Peter Burns, brought to you by Blue Delta Jeans. Peter, good morning, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing better. The Robert Earl Keen always is important in my life. Like, I like how certain people have walk-up music, and that's mine. Like, in fact, I think Robert Earl Keen's people reach out to me, and somebody was listening to you guys on TexAgs, and they're like, hey, by the way, I heard you're a big REK fan. Like, Robert's going to be playing over there at Floor's Country Store. Do you want to come by? And unfortunately, I couldn't because I was working doing the shows. But you're doing the Lord's work for me. I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate you. Look, I was thinking about you guys because CD had his Florida team struggle, obviously. Alyssa had South Carolina, and you had LSU. And I'm just thinking, like, that is, like, for a crew of people that I consider my friends, what a rough weekend to start your college football season.
Yeah, meanwhile, Dari, who's a big Oklahoma Sooner, was like, hey, like, we're coming to the SEC. Look at us. We scored 73 on Butch Jones at Arkansas State. So, yeah, he was the only one that was kind of happy after that first week. But, yeah, man, it's tough. I mean, you know, the SEC played, 3 ranked teams and 0-3. And, David, I can't remember the last time that we remember something like that happen. Like, I thought Utah was going to beat Florida. I thought North Carolina would beat South Carolina. But I did not expect LSU to get boat raced by Florida State. And they played damn good in that second half of that ball game.
Well, Peter, that was my thing about that game. It's not the fact that LSU lost to Florida State. We saw it last year. It's the way they lost and the way Florida State, to me, looked like an SEC team with how physical their front was, how well they blocked, and just their execution. That was the surprising part.
Yeah, I think that's and I mean, maybe it's just me kind of trying to, as a coping mechanism, but I'm like, all right, when I take a deep dive into this, I'm like, who would I take in a game right now on a neutral site? 2022 LSU or 2023 LSU? Because remember, LSU looked like hell last year against Florida State in that opener. They looked really discombobulated, and ultimately they made it to Atlanta. So, yeah, I mean, you know, with me, it just pains me to give Florida State any kind of love, but they damn sure. I mean, they look like a top 3, if not at least maybe the best team in the country after week 1.
Talking to Peter Burns here, brought to you by Blue Delta Jeans on TexAgs Radio. All right, let's move off LSU for a moment and talk about things that make me happy. And A&M's offense makes me extremely happy after a couple years of not being so happy. Just your take on the first test, which was just New Mexico, but raving reviews on this end.
No, it shouldn't make you happy. Like, it should, and honestly, it should make every single Texas A&M fan upset right now. And that's where I looked at it. I was like, I was more pissed off when I saw how good this offense looked because I was like, wait a minute, why didn't we go down this route 3 years ago? Right? Like, you know, when all of a sudden, you know, Jimbo all of a sudden decides, all right, now I need somebody to come take care of the offense. I need a different mind on it. And he's going to shift to more of the head coach CEO role, which a lot of coaches are doing right now. I almost looked at what happened against New Mexico and being like, man, I think I'm just kind of upset now that we didn't go down this route earlier. But I guess, you know, better is late than never. And I think that was the second biggest takeaway I had all week long. You know, number one was Tennessee defense looking a little bit better and looking aggressive. But 2, it's just how fluid Wegman looked in that offense, getting it to playmakers. And that's why I cannot wait for this matchup against Miami to see if it's a legit thing or was it just a week 1 against the Lobos type thing.
Well, what'd you think about, I mean, I don't know how much you were able to watch of that Miami game against Miami, Ohio, but from maybe some of the highlights, what kind of matchup do you expect this to be? Because it feels like 2 different teams from last year.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is what Miami is this year. They look better against Miami of Ohio, but Miami of Ohio was not very good. What Miami reminds me of right now is what Texas A&M was last year, and the fact that you had a boatload of young guys that are getting a ton of reps. And so I think the consistency is going to be erratic, right? I think you're going to have sometimes where Miami's going to look at it like going, man, they've got, that drive looked great, or man, they played great on the series or two, but is that sustainable? I think it is for A&M. Like, I have a lot more faith in A&M this year, not only because of the offense, but because you played so many young guys last year that they have that experience. Like, and that's what we've been waiting for Texas A&M. Two things. One, when was the offense going to look good? They've already checked that box. And two, when was this, young talent, all these number one recruiting, these 5-star, 4-star guys, when were they going to actually feel experience? And this should be the season. So, I mean, frankly, right now, I thought Texas A&M might have looked like the second best team, top to bottom after week one.
Well, Alabama sure looked pretty good. Jalen Milroe, there were a lot of there's still going to be questions, right? But maybe after this weekend for both teams
Sure.
Against a real opponent, there won't be as many. How about the way that Bama offense looked with Jalen?
Yeah, that to me was a little bit of fool's gold because even, and yes, Milroe, I mean, you saw it from one of the first plays from scrimmage, there was a bobbled snap. It was a bad snap. Milroe picked it up and then scampered, in like this Mike Vick type play. It was awesome. And I was like, that's the reason why they went with Milroe as opposed to any of the other quarterbacks, because he can turn, chicken blank into chicken salad. And that's what he did on that play. But again, even going back, and I talked to some people that actually, that study the film a lot closer than I, that they looked at it and they said, go and look at his passes. A lot of it were coming off the back foot. A lot of it was coming because there wasn't a whole heck of a lot of pressure. And so I think a lot of people want to see if Texas is going to be able to force a little bit more of the momentum against them this week to see if he's willing to stay in the pocket and step up. That was an issue that led to, some of their issues last year whenever he got a little chance to play. So I think they look good. Defensively, I think they look better than I thought they would. And I still think right now, they're a top 5 team in the country. But I also think Texas is good. I watched a little bit of Texas, and I know it pains, Aggie fans to hear, but that looked like more of a team that Texas should be as opposed to years previous where they just looked fraudulent.
Yeah. I didn't watch enough of the game to get a real feel. I watched the first half, and there were some struggles, but a lot of teams struggle in this first week. I think by the second and third week is when we start seeing who the real team is. What do you think is the key for Texas to go in there and get the win, and vice versa, the key for Bama?
Yeah, I mean, it's defensively. Like, are you going to push the pocket enough that Milroe has to step up and be a pocket passer, right? Like, I don't know if that ends up being a spy that Texas is going to have to use or whatnot to make sure that he doesn't kill you with his legs. But you got to force Jalen Milroe to make decisions and to make, I would be shocked if they don't try to play some press coverage and say, hey, we're going to send a little bit of a blitz. We're going to have some kind of contain on him as a spy, but we're not going to sit back and give him wide open, windows. Like, remember what Georgia did to Tennessee last year? Tennessee was playing great, but Georgia showed up and said, hey, we're going to punch you in the mouth on the line of scrimmage, and let's see, once we get these wide receivers off their timing, if they can make plays. Tennessee couldn't do it. I expect that's what Texas is going to try to do against Alabama. I just don't know if they could do it against that offensive line.
Talking to Peter Burns here on TexAgs Radio. I can't believe I'm intrigued by this matchup, and maybe if you would have told me 6 months ago or maybe a year ago, I wouldn't be, but I'm intrigued by Tulane and Ole Miss. I love Willie Fritz.
Oh, yeah.
I'm interested to see how Ole Miss does in these tough games because, they struggled quite a bit at the end of last year.
Yeah, and my question coming in week one was, hey, would Jackson Dart, be trying to press a little bit too much in week one? I mean, he threw for like 9,000 yards and 8 touchdowns in the first quarter, and you're like, all right, they feel comfortable. And I think that was a pretty vanilla game plan that Ole Miss had, was just, hey, we're going to pass the ball to see if Jackson Dart blinks, and he did. But Tulane doesn't blink, man. I mean, that team, Willie Fritz has got those guys playing. It's a rare game where, they're going to play. I think this is the first time Ole Miss has been on the road in a ranked non-conference game where both teams are ranked since like 1960. Like, we just don't see it. Like, I mean, Tulane legit is one of those teams like Cincinnati to where, hey, things kind of go crazy, and I think there'll be a lot of parity that it would not shock me if Tulane is one of those teams that's undefeated at the end of the year, and they would get maybe a college football playoff look, because they have an Ole Miss on the schedule.
Peter, Kentucky, I think it was interesting where Mark Stoops was very unhappy, yet they won by 31 points. He expects a certain kind of way of running, and he was not impressed with some of their mistakes.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing, dude, that was just a wacky game, because we had that one on SEC Network, and yeah, it's interesting to see Kentucky has come so far to where you beat a team by 30 points and coach is pissed. Like, that wouldn't have happened 6 years ago, but that's a mark of what Stoops has built there in Lexington. And I think the thing that was really weird about it is that they only had 50 offensive snaps, 50 or 51. Like, they had a defensive score. There was some other wonky stuff with the clock. So I'm like, it was really hard to get a gauge on whether or not Devin Leary is that guy. Like, after watching week one, Connor Wegman is the dude, right? Like, we know, like, he looks the part. Jalen Milroe looks the part. But when it comes down to it, I don't think we got a chance to see Devin Leary enough. And I think Liam Cohen was trying a little too hard to announce his presence back over at Lexington. So I think they'll settle back in, and I still think they're going to be a dangerous team.
How about the early reviews of Mississippi State and Will Rogers? New system, new coaching environment, obviously, and but similar results.
Yeah, how crazy is that the number one rushing team after week one is Mississippi State? Like, that's crazy to make that jump from, Leach's, vaunted air raid offense to what Kevin Barbay brought over from App State. But I thought it was really interesting on that one is the idea that they used Mike Wright. Remember the former Vanderbilt quarterback. They used him in some different packages that really kind of created a different wrinkle. And I think now, too, with the transfer portal, this doesn't really apply to A&M because Wegman does a little bit more with his legs than I think Max does. But I think Auburn and Mississippi State are going to be in similar situations where you have a starting quarterback, but you're going to have a change of pace quarterback for some packages. And I think you're going to see more and more of that now with the transfer portal of guys saying, hey, be on this team, give me 2 looks. And that way guys don't transfer out. I think it's kind of an interesting thing that Q and Zach Arnett can use.
Peter, back to LSU for a quick moment. Not that I expect Brian Kelly to listen to talk shows around the country and social media flair, but Harold Perkins not used the way we were used to seeing him for most of last year. Do you think that's going to change, or they're just in a position they have to use him like that?
Well, they don't have to do it, but I think here's what people don't want to talk about is the fact of Harold Perkins. When you recruit these guys, you're recruiting you're going to have success at LSU or A&M or wherever, but your big success is going to come to the NFL. And I think that they looked at Harold Perkins and said, hey, man, there's no position like that you played last year in the NFL. Let's try to teach you the skills to be an inside linebacker, and that's how you're going to make it into the league. The problem is that Harold Perkins is a race car, man. Like, you don't need him reading and reacting. You need him to just go fly. It's like having that Ferrari and you're taking it on a Sunday stroll as opposed to the Autobahn. Like, open that puppy up. So I think that they'll try it at least another week against Grambling. And then I think at some point, Brian Kelly's going to go to Matt House's office there, the defensive coordinator, and be like, all right, we tried this, but we got to do what's best for LSU. And that's to send Harold Perkins after the quarterback like a rabid dog every time, not trying to make him into, this, that win linebacker, that can read and react properly.
That's Peter Burns, SEC Network, joins us every week during the season. Thanks to Blue Delta Jeans. PB, we appreciate it, man. Talk to you next week.
Hopefully our teams have a better, like me, Doring, and Langer all in better moods on TexAgs next week. That's all I'm hoping for. Fingers crossed.
Let's hope so, brother. Have a good one, man.
See you, buddy.
Later.
Bye. Later.
All right, Peter Burns here on the – actually, I don't really care if LSU's happy or not, to be honest with you. They're going to be fine this week at least. All right, let's hit a break here. We'll come back with some final thoughts and text messages here on the text line. You're listening to TexAgs Radio, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Blaze of Glory. Nick Savage, familiar with the song?
No, I'm not.
Familiar with the singer?
It sounds familiar. Is it a band or the singer?
It's a band and a singer.
Is it Skid Row?
Nope.
No. Okay, I'm gonna get roasted.
Are you
for
familiar?
That one.
No. I'm not doing it to make you feel bad or anything. I'm just asking if you know.
Is that from a movie?
It is from a movie.
Okay. Can you?
He just said the name of the movie right there.
Blades of Glory. I know.
No.
Oh no. What is it? Oh,
Young
Blaze
Guns.
of Glory. Okay.
No, Young Guns 2.
Okay.
And that is John Bon.
Oh, that's Bon Jovi. Oh man, that's embarrassing. I should know that then.
John Bon Jovi. Yeah. Good. Yeah. I mean, I haven't watched the Young Gun movies in probably 30 years. I don't know, maybe longer.
I haven't watched it in 24 years.
Well, you're missing out. But back in the day, I think we even talked about it last week on the show. Back in the day, Young Guns 1 was really good. Young Guns 2 I enjoyed. Billy the Kid. It's all about Billy. That seems like something you would watch.
Is it like a Western? Or is it a Western, I should say?
Yeah, it's a Western. It's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Couple of headlines that caught my attention. Brian Kelly confirms Denver Harris is available for LSU. So that's happening. Also on 3, I found this. Let's see if I can find it again. It was an interesting headline for an article, and basically what it said was that under Sark, that Texas is now developing NFL talent, and I'm like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe
there's no track record for it.
I don't know. Like year 1, nobody went. Year 2, 5 people went, and Bijan went. And a lot of them were late round. I don't know how we know that. I don't know. Like, okay, well, A&M put a lot of people in the NFL too, in a couple years in a row. So I don't know. I just propaganda machine out there, I guess. We'll see. We'll see what kind of year they have. They could have a really good year. Doesn't matter to me. What matters is what we do here at A&M. My thanks to all of our guests today. Peter Burns just a moment ago. Ryan Broniger, Coach G. We also had John Harris. That was a fun talk with Johnny Harris. And, of course, Olin Buchanan. Tomorrow on the program, McGee and Swope will be with us. Looking forward to talking to those jokers. We will also have the final countdown is actually tomorrow because we're traveling to Miami. So we'll do the final countdown with Seth McKinney and Billy tomorrow during the 9 o'clock hour because at 10 o'clock, Bronny's going to finish out the show with the fan show guys. And I'm going to be got to go on this trip. Sorry, guys. Anyway, that'll do it for TexAgs Radio. We'll see you mañana.